Comer, particularly on Wexner and both Daniel and Richard, who are the two heads of the Epstein estate.
Yeah.
We've been pushing to get those names. We finally got them. Quite frankly, because Representative Luna on the other side worked with me. We cut a deal. We moved it forward, and we got some Republicans to vote with us.
On this issue of holding DOJ accountable for not following the law, here's Thomas Massie, Congressman.
Congress because it's contempt because they're not in compliance with the congressional subpoena, which expires at the end of Congress. This law does not expire at the end of Congress, and so they've got a real problem. The contempt that the Congress refers, they could be in jeopardy of that even after this Congress.
Okay, Congressman Garcia, I wanted to play that because in a rational world, in a real world where you have officials playing by the rules, yeah, they should be afraid. But we're talking about the Trump administration, where they have shown basically from the moment he took the oath of office that he and they do not give a damn about what the law says, what norms are. And this is the same man who went on the record with the New York Times to say, in terms of foreign policy, morality is his own morality, and his own mind is what's going to guide him. So why should Congressman Massie, why should you think that a contempt charge on any official within the Trump administration would even be taken seriously, let alone investigated or acted upon?
I mean, I think there's two things that are important. I mean, one is because Donald Trump's not going to be the president forever, and Republicans aren't going to control the House forever, and we're going to ensure that anyone that is causing harm to the American public, lying, cheating, breaking the Constitution, redacting information illegally, all of that has got to be, we've got to hold folks accountable for that. The second piece is because there are actually good civil servants at the DOJ and at the FBI that have worked on these files, that know what's in them. There are whistleblowers within the Department of Justice. There is a bubble that continues to grow of people within our agencies that are frustrated and tired of all of this being hidden and not coming out. And so there's going to be a lot of people, I believe, if the files aren't released and everything's not put on the table, you are going to have, I believe, people within the DOJ begin to call that out. And I think that Pam Bondi knows this, which is why they are working overtime and trying to cover their tracks right now. We are talking to folks right now. I have heard some of the items that are possibly in the DOJ's possession. They got to release all the files.
Congressman, I'm going to get in trouble with our producers because we are out of time, but I want to get you on another topic. Let's go to E6, guys. The House voted to subpoena a journalist over a report on Delta Force commander. This was led by the House committee member Anna Paulina Luna, who accused a journalist, Seth Harp, of leaking classified intel after he posted a photograph of a person he identified as the commander of the elite unit responsible for the Venezuela operation. In that reporting that came out Thursday, it said you supported that. I'm curious, and I guess help explain to me and explain to the American people why it shouldn't be concerning that Congress or any administration would subpoena a reporter for reporting on what seems like something the American people and the world should hear.
Look, I think that's a good question. Look, essentially, Republicans control the majority on the Oversight Committee. So they were going to this subpoena, which Representative Luna brought forward, was going to happen with our votes or without our votes. They had the votes. They presented the subpoena. They were going to vote for it. Democrats made the decision, if they're going to subpoena this reporter, which was not our choice, that we're going to attach these Epstein subpoenas to that vote, and that's how we got the Epstein subpoenas. So we wouldn't have gotten the Epstein subpoenas without attaching them to her initial vote. We were going to lose that vote regardless.
But do you worry about the precedent that it might set
Absolutely.
to the American people?
I mean, look, it's not a subpoena that we agree with. Either that subpoena was going to go through with no Epstein subpoenas, or we were going to attach the Epstein subpoenas to them.
We're out of time. Didn't have a chance to ask you about the other probe you announced yesterday that we reported on into Trump officials and oil companies, but we'll have to have you on next weekend to discuss further. Putting you on the spot. Robert Garcia, thank you so much for joining us. Coming up next, Democratic Whip Congresswoman Katherine Clark on what it took to convince 17 Republicans to break with Trump this week and vote to revive key Obamacare subsidies. Plus, you can listen to every episode of The Weekend as a podcast. You know it, for free free. Scan the QR code on your screen to listen on the go wherever you get your podcasts. You're watching The Weekend.
#1 compression sock brand. Easy on, easy off compression socks with built-in arch support technology to relieve tired, achy feet.
So I want to give you an update what's going on with the situation in ICE as people are protesting ICE and also calling for impeachments. This is first Minneapolis, Minnesota. It says large protests forming at Minneapolis Hilton where ICE is reported to be staying. And essentially everyone's out. You saw the shark, you saw Pokemon. That's a frog with an accordion. And you got various people bringing instruments. I saw flutes and drums and all kinds of stuff. And there's people from all walks of life showing up to stand up for the Constitution and for the country. I want to show you a bit more here. This is actually a different part. And in fact, you can see it's really cold out. It's snowing. And it basically shows you that people are coming out and making their voices heard, again, to defend the Constitution, stand up for their neighbors, no matter what the weather is or what the conditions are. This is more. This is the frog and the shark and the Pokemon. And someone brought a drum set out, and I think this is probably right in front of the hotel where the ICE is staying. This is more. This is actually Fox News is running it because there's so many people showing up. It says moments ago, anti-ICE crowd gathers at a building in Minneapolis, and one of the signs reads, "We've done it before, we'll do it again." That means protest, and again, we're talking about protecting our neighbors and standing up for the Constitution. This is happening in Portland, Oregon. So this is my hometown. There was a recent ICE shooting there also. So it's both Oregon and Minnesota. And again, people are showing up. You can see this. The protests are happening now. This is Representative Kelly, and she's calling for the impeachment of Kristi Noem, who is in charge of the ICE and the DHS. And listen to what she says here on TV.
That we cannot stay on the sidelines. We need to use every tool in the toolbox. We need to give the public hope that an incompetent leader just can't come into communities and actually terrorize communities, traumatize communities. I represent, part of the Chicagoland area, and I saw what happened there, what's still happening there. It's morally wrong. It's economically wrong. It's hurting small businesses. People aren't going to work. They're not sending their kids to school.
And she's calling for the impeachment of Noem. This is also Representative Stansbury. She's calling for impeachment of Noem also.
I rise today on the House floor with a heavy heart for the family and the community of Renee Nicole Good. My heart is heavy not just because of the unabashed and violent killing that happened last night by an ICE agent in Minneapolis, because I'm also sad for our country to see the Vice President of the United States and officials impugn a young woman who leaves behind her community and an orphan child. This is not our country. Shame on you. To those of you that are continuing to provide cover for this lawless, unconstitutional, abusive, and violent administration, shame on you. I will be joining to file articles of impeachment against Secretary Noem. Enough is enough.
And I think it's really important for you to know, and I know people always say, you might be in a community where you feel like you're alone and maybe everyone around you is crazy, you feel like, or you might have a family member that sees the world differently than you. I see it in the comments, guys, and I just want you to know that you're not alone and you're safe to express your opinion here. You can see there's several people out there protesting. There's representatives calling for impeachment. So just again, you are not alone. And I want to show you some more. This is also what Homeland Security is saying. And just look how whacked out these people are. This is their messaging. We'll have our home again. Bombers and cowboys. And it's just so ludicrous. You know, I think the country's way bigger and way more diverse than just bombers and cowboys. And I guess if you want to live in that world where we bomb everyone and run around in horses and cowboy hats, right? You know, all the symbols that represents, you can, but there's a lot of people that disagree. This is the Portland police chief, and have a listen to what he has to say. It's really powerful.
I want to speak for just a moment specifically to my Latino community. It saddens me that we even have to qualify these remarks, because I understand, or at least have attempted to understand through your voices, your concern, your fear, your anger. This information in no way is meant to disparage or to condone or support or agree with any of the actions that occurred yesterday. But it is important that we stay committed to the rule of law, that we stay committed to the facts, that we stay a trustworthy and legitimate police department for all of Portlanders.
And I just think it's so important to hear different points of view and different sides. And, you know, there's so many people out there that just want to do the right thing, you know, uphold the law, uphold the Constitution. And that's why I'm showing you again, you guys are not alone. This is actually Stephen Colbert. He says, the message from this administration is clear. Only they determine the truth. And when their forces come to your city, obey or die. And if you die, you clearly didn't obey. This should be an alarm bell for the entire country, right? And it's important to have different voices because different voices speak to different people differently, right? Some people might respond to the police chief because, you know, for me, I look at that and I'm just like, man, it's my hometown. And that's, you know, that's what I want. I want officials to protect the public, right? To look after everyone and you know, do the right thing. Or you may be, you know, the kind of person who's like watches the talk shows and you're like, Stephen Colbert is speaking up like, hey, you know, I don't want to live in a fascist regime. I want, you know, freedom and democracy for all of us. There's different points of view. This is a political cartoon. It says, stop calling us fascists, right? As the ICE agent is beating down people. I think it's important that everyone has a different point of view on this stuff and a different way to express their feelings. And when I was going through this stuff today, the first thing that went through my mind is just the richness and the beauty of diversity in the USA. And that is the country's strength, to be able to have all these different points of view. This is also, I wanted to show it to you guys. This is another angle of the shooting, because some people asked me about, did I see it? And I did see it. This is, I believe, is the phone footage from the ICE agent. So this should be Jonathan Ross's footage. You can actually see the reflection of him holding the phone as he's recording Renee Good before he killed her, basically, as you can see. There she is right there. They're talking. He's, you know, recording everything, getting the license plate and things. And I don't know, the Trump people say this seems to make it seem like that the car is going to hurt him or something like that. But I don't know. It looks the same as what we saw before. But I'm just showing it to you guys because people did ask, you know, and that looks like she was going to get in the car, as you can see there. And then Renee started to drive and then she was shot. And that's the footage. So if you guys see anything different than what you saw before from this other angle, you can let me know. But I just want to show you I did see it. I do want to say, though, that people are protesting, and this is bringing out all kinds of people. So listen to this.
I am a huge patriot. I love America. I love the United States. I'm very sad at what's happening to the community. So,
You're very sad what's happening in the community. I can tell you're very emotional about it as well.
I'm emotional about my country. I have a son in the Army. I'm very proud of our country. I'm ashamed of what's happening right now.
So even though you support the country and you support the military, you're ashamed of what happened yesterday. And
absolutely, and I'm ashamed of ICE. I think it's extremely un-American. Basically above the law actions by people who I think probably are not trained the way that they should be. It's
So do you think that what happened yesterday is the straw that broke the camel's back in this community?
I would say it's been building. I think just the rhetoric with the governor and the president and Kristi Noem, it's just been building. But for sure, I would say it's tipped over.
Yeah.
And so the reason why I'm showing you this is you can see, like, so something like this probably is not, you know, typical the person would come out and protest. And the way that the Trumpers always try to say is, oh, everyone's all paid and they're just a bunch of radicals. But this guy's like, my son's in the army. You know, I love this country. I love America. And I hate to see what's happening. Right. And you can even see the sign right behind the gentleman's like, love our neighbors. And so I think it's important to show these kind of things. So you see that, one, you're not alone. And you can see that it's different Americans from all facets of life are coming out to speak out, to defend the Constitution and to protect their neighbors. Have a listen to more what he has to say.
I'm here, and I was going to been here in the last month, so.
That's what I was going to say. It brought someone like you out who doesn't typically protest.
Correct.
Why come out front and center?
This is breaking my heart. Some of these guys are proud Americans and trying to do their job. Others are young and probably not, maybe misled. But
what did you think when they surged?
America.
What did you think when they surged into the crowd and detained those people?
I really hope that both sides of us can be peaceful and not resort to this intimidation stuff. As an American, I have a right to protest. They have a right to uphold the law. I don't want to break the law. They must let me protest. But it honestly breaks my heart.
Would you be here more than one day? You think you would come back, or is this just a one-off for someone like you?
I don't know what to say to that. It's possible. Of course, I hope that the heat could be turned down on both sides.
And I think that's a reasonable way to look at it. And I think there's a lot of Americans who are kind of like that. And eventually there'll come a turning point. They're just like, enough's it up. I got to get out and make my voices heard. I want to show you some more. This is actually in Pennsylvania, the local DA. Have a listen to what he has to say.
If any law enforcement agent, any ICE agent, is going to come to Philly to commit crimes, then you can get the F out of here. Because if you do that here, I will charge you with those crimes. You will be arrested. You will stand trial. You will be convicted, whether it's in state or federal court. It's my office prosecuting it. That's how the law works. And you will do your time because Donald Trump cannot pardon you for a state court conviction. Do you hear me, ICE agents? Do you hear me, National Guard? Do you hear me, military? You're going to jail if you commit crimes in the city of Philadelphia. You will be accountable. The law applies to all of you. And I know that there are honest, decent, moral law enforcement officers out there by the bushel, including in ICE. This is not for you. This is for any one of your colleagues who thinks they are above the law.
And I think that's a good way to put it, right? Just be fair on this stuff. Speak plainly. You break the law, Trump is not going to protect you, right? I think that's a great way to put it. Let me show you some more. This is actually the DA then in Minnesota. I think it's a DA. It's actually, I can tell you, it's the Hennepin County Attorney General. So that's a better way to say it. The Hennepin County Attorney General.
While I respect the FBI's process, our community's expectations are much different in terms of transparency. This community expects to understand what the evidence is and the justification for any decision that might be made. To that end, I cannot overstate the importance of a local investigation, or at least access to the federal investigation by the BCA. Without it, we will not have the ability to be transparent with our community about the results of the expectation, or, as I said, any decision that might come of the review. And let me be clear, we have no preconceived opinion on what the evidence will show. Making a charging or decline decision in an officer-involved case requires us to evaluate the evidence in the context of complicated legal issues. For that reason, we cannot reach a conclusion about any outcome here. Our goal must be to ensure that a thorough investigation is completed at the local level so that our community can have transparency.
And this is actually really important. I know there's people upset on different sides of this particular situation, but this is really important. Rule of law, follow the Constitution, look at the evidence. Facts do matter. And I know the Trumpers and those kind of things, they try to say, just listen to my crazy tweets or whatever. And he lies like nonstop, and you get stuck in this world of where like, gee, maybe facts don't matter anymore. But no, they do. Facts do matter. And there's a lot of people still that want to uphold the law and, again, live in a world of the Constitution. This is from Senator Chris Van Hollen. He says, Nome's DHS just got caught lying about a shooting in Maryland after an investigation by local authorities. We can't trust a word they say. Another reason why Minnesota authorities must join the investigation into the killing of Renee Good. We need accountability, not a cover-up. And this is essentially what local authorities are now all calling for. So say, be it in Portland, Oregon, or in Minneapolis, Minnesota, right? To make sure that the rule of law is followed and that we do this properly. And I also want to show you this, and just giving you the full facts as much as I know. They've identified, I believe, the people who were shot in Portland. It says here, this is from KATU, so it's the local Portland news. We're learning more about the two people shot Thursday by U.S. Customs and Borders Protection agent in Southeast Portland, with DHS and Portland Police confirming they had two ties to the Tren de Aragua criminal group. So they might have been. And this is part where I don't hide. I just show you guys, what it is. Now, I do want to make clear, though, it doesn't necessarily mean they deserve to be shot, right? Because in any of these reports, I haven't heard anything to where people are shooting ICE and ICE shoots back and that sort of thing. They always try to make the case, they used their car as a weapon or whatever. But in these situations, the facts do matter. I want to see the video for myself or whatever evidence that they have. And I think for any of this in these sensitive topics, do understand the facts. That's why I think it's always important to talk about this stuff. So that's what's going on, and that's what people are saying. And just understand you are not alone, and more people are speaking out. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.
How do particles know it's time to decay?
Love that question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Sorry about your name, David, because since you asked such a great question.
So what's the best way of describing that? Is time. So they have a lifetime, which is, as I said before, is to do with, can you decay into something lighter? So there might be a reason you can't, right? Because things are like electric charge, for example. Electric charge is conserved. So you can't take a positive charge thing and have it decay into a lighter, negatively charged thing, because you'd be inventing. You can't destroy and create electric charge. You have to do it in pairs. It's conserved. A very important example is the neutron and the proton. So the neutron is a bit heavier than the proton. So the neutron can change into a proton.
And does.
And does in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, so
I thought it was even quicker than like 6 minutes.
Is it, or 8 minutes?
Yeah. It's like you can count it out and watch it happen.
Yeah. So if it's sat on its own, it'll do that, and to conserve charge, there'll be a positive thing will go as well, and so basically it can do it. So, and the lifetime is really proportional to the difference in mass between the neutron and the proton, which is very tiny. So if it was really big, if it was much heavier, it'd decay quicker. So you've got there's the mass difference, and then there's the number of things you can decay into, the number of ways you can do it.
Yeah, but that's just a statistical average. The decay time, that's the half-life.
Yes, half-life.
Okay, so we fill out the time with some of them are decaying sooner or longer. So it's not just as simple as you described, where how much difference is there in the energy of the mass of what it is and what it can be. Because There's a variation in there. And I interpret that question as, how do you get that variation?
Oh, well, that's quantum mechanics. So it's statistical.
Don't say that's an answer.
Well, no, but you're right. It's a very deep question.
Yeah.
It's like, and that bothered immensely the early founders of quantum mechanics. So people like Rutherford and those people who, Niels Bohr and all those people, and Einstein, it bothered a lot. God does not play dice with the universe. That's essentially what you're saying. You're saying, why does God play dice, as Einstein put it? So the reason...
He was late on the mortgage for the universe.
Yeah.
So he plays dice to get some extra cash on the side.
Papa got to make this money.
So I think it was...
Papa got to make this money, baby. Come on.
Wait, but Brian, I realized just while you were speaking that you did answer her question precisely, because she said, because why does some take longer than others?
Yeah.
And the difference in how many options it has coming out the other side.
Yeah, and the mass difference.
And the mass difference. So that'll say why one will decay in 5 minutes or 10 hours. You can get that.
Yeah.
Okay. Given that, what is going on at the instant that it decays?
It's another
because
question.
does that give me insight into why some will decay sooner and some will decay later, so that it averages out to that half-life?
So what's going on? So you can, it's called the weak nuclear force that's changing these things. So that's part of the standard model. So what actually happens when a neutron turns into a proton? So a down quark turns into an up quark. So what happens is the down quark, you can think of it as emitting a particle, force carrying particle comes off. It's a W minus, which then goes to an electron and a thing called an anti-electron neutrino, actually. But it goes, so the W minus goes off, and then you get a down quark, which is a charge plus 2/3.
Okay.
So you get a minus 1/3 quark going to a plus 2/3 quark, and then you get an electron that comes off. So all the charges are conserved. So you haven't invented electric charge.
Right.
And
so
also
the
when
sum of all the charges at the end is the same.
We got it. And when we think of a neutron decaying to a proton, all that's the engine process going on. That's the gearing that's happening that you just described.
So it's the same kind of picture as why does an electron bounce off another electron? So we'd say, well, because they've got negative charge and negative charges repel. But the particle physics picture of that is that a photon is exchanged between the electrons. So in this case, it's not the electromagnetic force, it's called the weak nuclear force. Basically, the down quark is changing into an up quark with ultimately the emission of an electron and a neutrino, and the W minus is the particle.
And in the end, when that happens, it's statistical. Wow. We got to deal with that. Are we hiding our awareness of objective reality by dusting it into the bin of probability?
No, it's not the same. That randomness is not the same as the randomness because we don't know everything. So in terms of a gas, let's say, there are things are jiggling around. We don't keep track. We spoke about it earlier. We don't keep track of the billions of molecules in the gas. So there's some statistics comes in because we're averaging over loads. Quantum mechanics is not like that. As far as we can tell, the statistical nature of it is it's built into the theory. It's built into nature. That bothered everybody.
So Einstein was just wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Einstein didn't like it. It is true that how to interpret that, then it's a whole other episode, right? So you've probably talked to people about the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Particles, no. It's time to decay.
Love that question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Sorry about your name, David, because since you asked such a great question.
So what's the best way of describing that? Is time. So they have a lifetime, which is, as I said before, is to do with, can you decay into something lighter? So there might be a reason you can't, right? Because things are like electric charge, for example. Electric charge is conserved. So you can't take a positive charge thing and have it decay into a lighter, negatively charged thing, because you'd be inventing. You can't destroy and create electric charge. You have to do it in pairs. It's conserved. A very important example is the neutron and the proton. So the neutron is a bit heavier than the proton. So the neutron can change into a proton.
And does.
And does in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, so,
I thought it was even quicker than like 6 minutes.
Is it or 8 minutes? I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
remember.
It's like you can count it out and watch
it happen.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if it's sat on its own, it'll do that, and to conserve charge, there'll be a positive thing will go as well, and so basically it can do it. So, and the lifetime is really proportional to the difference in mass between the neutron and the proton, which is very tiny. So if it was really big, if it was much heavier, it'd decay quicker. So you've got there's the mass difference, and then there's the number of things you can decay into, the number of ways you can do it.
Yeah, but that's just a statistical average. The decay time, that's the half-life.
Yes, half-life.
Okay,
yeah.
so we fill out the time with some of them are decaying sooner or longer. So it's not just as simple as you described, where how much difference is there in the energy of the mass of what it is and what it can be, because there's a variation in there. And I interpret that question as, how do you get that variation?
Oh, well, that's quantum mechanics. So it's statistical.
Don't say that's an answer.
Well, no, but you're right. It's a very deep question.
Yeah.
It's like, and that bothered immensely the early founders of quantum mechanics. So people like Rutherford and those people who Niels Bohr and all those people, and Einstein, it bothered a lot. God does not play dice with the universe. That's essentially what you're saying. You're saying, why does God play dice, as Einstein put it? So the reason
He was late on the mortgage for the universe.
Yeah.
So he plays dice to get some extra cash on the side.
Papa got to make this money.
So I think it was
Papa got to make this money, baby. Come on.
Wait, but Brian, I realized just while you were speaking that you did answer her question precisely, because she said, because why do some take longer than others?
Yeah.
And the difference in how many options it has coming out the other side.
and the mass difference.
And the mass difference. So that'll say why one will decay in 5 minutes or 10 hours. You can get that.
Yeah.
Okay. Given that, what is going on at the instant that it decays?
It's another
Because
question.
does that give me insight into why some will decay sooner and some will decay later, so that it averages out to that half-life?
So what's going on? So you can, it's called the weak nuclear force that's changing these things. So that's part of the standard model. So what actually happens when a neutron turns into a proton? So a down quark turns into an up quark. So what happens is the down quark, you can think of it as emitting a particle, a force carrying particle comes off. It's a W minus, which then goes to an electron and a thing called an anti-electron neutrino, actually. But it goes, so the W minus goes off, and then you get a down quark, which is a charge plus 2/3.
Okay.
So you get a minus 1/3 quark going to a plus 2/3 quark, and then you get an electron that comes off. So all the charges are conserved. So you haven't invented electric charge.
You have right.
And
so
also
the sum of all the charges at the end is the same. As
We
the
got
sum
it.
of
And when we think of a neutron decaying to a proton, all that's the engine process going on. That's the gearing that's happening that you just described.
So it's the same kind of picture as why does an electron bounce off another electron? So we'd say, well, because they've got negative charge and negative charges repel. But the particle physics picture of that is that a photon is exchanged between the electrons. So in this case, it's not the electromagnetic force, it's called the weak nuclear force. Basically, the down quark is changing into an up quark with ultimately the emission of an electron and a neutrino, and the W minus is the particle.
And in the end, when that happens, it's statistical. Wow. We got to deal with that. Are we hiding our awareness of objective reality by dusting it into the bin of probability?
No, it's not the same. That randomness is not the same as the randomness because we don't know everything. So in terms of a gas, let's say, there are things are jiggling around. We don't keep track. We spoke about it earlier. We don't keep track of the billions of molecules in the gas. So there's some statistics comes in because we're averaging over a load. The quantum mechanics is not like that. As far as we can tell, the statistical nature of it is inherently, it's built into the theory, it's built into nature. And that bothered everybody.
So Einstein was just wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you know,
Dumbass.
Einstein didn't like it. It is true that how to interpret that, then it's a whole other episode, right? So you've probably talked to people about the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. Now, that's all. That's this thing. That's all in this. How do you interpret those statistical predictions
without
the collapse of the wave function,
without invoking a statistical description?
Yeah, I mean, so it seems that it's a fundamental part of the theory.
You know my favorite part of particle decay?
What's that?
If you accelerate them,
right,
then they take longer to decay.
That makes sense.
Because Einstein's special theory of relativity.
So, yeah.
That's
you're
so badass.
Going closer to the speed of light, so time literally is slowing down.
And so it takes longer to decay.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
That's very cool, man.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Time for a few more.
All right, here we go. This is John. He says, hello, Lord Nice and Dr. Tyson, Dr. Cox. John from Arkansas here. You've both explained what a Planck length is and how we will likely never get more accurate measurements beyond this supposed limit. I am wondering if light can have a wavelength that small and if energy would be measurable, or could that be another infinity we need new physics to explain, much like the singularity in a black hole? P.S. Love the show, and Chuck, I figured I'd mention you first for a change. Anyway, yeah.
There is an answer to this.
I love this question.
Yeah.
I would not have been able to answer this question.
The answer is that, so the smaller you make the wavelength of a photon, the higher the energy is.
Yes.
So
there should be an energy associated with the wavelength that is a Planck length.
Yes. And you find out that that energy density makes a black hole.
With USAA Safe Pilot, I can save when I road trip safely.
Or with USAA Safe Pilot miles, I can save when I staycation.
What you want to do is save hundreds when Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance.
That's great, but can you ask your friend to...
So I think
my effing God!
So you think about it, the more you try to probe smaller, and then the black hole would. I think Len Suskind calls it the UV-IR connection. I think that's what he calls it. So the upshot is that if you try to put more and more energy into a smaller and smaller space to see smaller things, the size of the black hole you make increases. It grows.
That's wild.
So the more you try to see smaller things, the less you can see the small things, because the black hole gets.
The universe is diabolical.
Yes.
Yeah. So it stops you. So you can't probe it.
So black holes are in the Cosmological Witness Protection Program.
Yeah.
You can't get in there. You just can't. No matter what you do, you're not going to. That's amazing. What a great question, bro. That was awesome.
Okay,
All right.
and just remind us briefly about a Planck length. Just put that on the map here.
So you can construct units, fundamental units, from things like, from specifically the speed of light, the strength of gravity, and Planck's constant. So if you take those things and put them together, so you get meters out, you'll get the Planck length. So it's Planck who figured out that it would be good to make units of measurement out of things on which everyone would agree. If you meet an alien, for example, then there's no point in talking about a meter, because what is it? It's the length of your arm or something like that.
Oh, no, it's 1/10 the length of a quarter of the Earth from the North Pole to the equator through the Paris Observatory.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes.
Right, okay.
That's why the circumference of the Earth is 40 million meters. Which is, and make that kilometers. It's 40,000 kilometers.
Right, so
is the
it
circumference.
comes from.
That's why it's that even.
Yeah,
it's the French did that, but
So
you're
they're all
Brits, so you don't
arbitrary.
care what they did.
Yeah, so they're all arbitrary things that are to do with our planet or our bodies or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But then you could say, well, but the speed of light, Planck's constant, and the strength of gravity, everyone would agree on.
Even aliens.
So
yes.
yeah, because you can measure those. So whatever units you measure them in, you can put them together to make something that looks like a length.
Gotcha.
And that's the Planck length. And it happens to be very, very tiny relative to us.
Right.
Very cool.
So can there be a fabric of space-time that, in other words, if you were to quantize general relativity, you would have to, the Planck length would be fundamental to that. Is that not right?
Yeah. So
how do particles know it's time to decay?
Love that question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
describing that is time. So they have a lifetime, which is, as I said before, is to do with can you decay into something lighter? So there might be a reason you can't, right? Because things are like electric charge, for example. Electric charge is conserved. So you can't take a positive charge thing and have it decay into a lighter, negatively charged thing, because you'd be inventing. You can't destroy and create electric charge. You have to do it in pairs. It's conserved. A very important example is the neutron and the proton. So the neutron is a bit heavier than the proton. So the neutron can change into a proton.
And does.
And does in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, so,
I thought it was even quicker than like 6 minutes.
Is it or 8 minutes?
Yeah. It's like you can count it out and watch it happen.
Yeah. So if it's sat on its own, it'll do that, and to conserve charge, there'll be a positive thing will go as well, and so basically it can do it. So, and the lifetime is really proportional to the difference in mass between the neutron and the proton, which is very tiny. So if it was really big, if it was much heavier, it'd decay quicker. So you've got there's the mass difference, and then there's the number of things you can decay into, the number of ways you can do it.
Yeah, but that's just a statistical average. The decay time. That's the half-life.
Yes, half-life.
Okay, so we fill out the time with some of them are decaying sooner or longer. So it's not just as simple as you described, where how much difference is there in the energy of the mass of what it is and what it can be, because there's a variation in there. And I interpret that question as, how do you get that variation?
Oh well, that's quantum mechanics. So it's statistical.
Don't say that's the answer.
Well, no, you're right. Founders of quantum mechanics. So people like Rutherford and those people who Niels Bohr and all those people, and Einstein, it bothered a lot. God does not play dice with the universe. That's essentially what you're saying. You're saying, why does God play dice, as Einstein put it? So the reason
he was late on the mortgage for the universe.
Yeah.
So he plays dice to get some extra cash on the side.
Papa got to make this money.
So I think it was
Papa got to make this money, baby. Come on.
Wait, but Brian, I realized just while you were speaking that you did answer her question precisely, because she said, because why do some take longer than others?
Yeah.
And the difference in how many options it has coming out the other side.
Yeah, and the mass difference.
So that'll say why one will decay in 5 minutes or 10 hours. You can get that.
Yeah.
Okay. Given that, what is going on at the instant that it decays?
It's another
because
question.
does that give me insight into why some will decay sooner and some will decay later, so that it averages out to that half-life?
So what's going on? So you can. It's called the weak nuclear force that's changing these.
Decay.
Love that question.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Sorry about your name, David, because since you asked such a great question.
So what's the best way of describing that is time? So they have a lifetime, which is, as I said before, is to do with can you decay into something lighter? So there might be a reason you can't, right? Because things are like electric charge, for example. Electric charge is conserved. So you can't take a positive charge thing and have it decay into a lighter, negatively charged thing, because you'd be inventing. You can't destroy and create electric charge. You have to do it in pairs. It's conserved. A very important example is the neutron and the proton. So the neutron is a bit heavier than the proton. So the neutron can change into a proton.
And does.
And does in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, so,
I thought it was even quicker, though, like 6 minutes.
Is it, or 8 minutes? I
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
remember.
It's like you can count it out and watch it.
Be a positive thing will go as well, and so basically it can do it. So, and the lifetime is really proportional to the difference in mass between the neutron and the proton, which is very tiny. So if it was really big, if it was much heavier, it'd decay quicker. So you've got there's the mass difference, and then there's the number of things you can decay into, the number of ways you can do it.
Yeah, but that's just a statistical average. The decay time. That's the half-life.
Yes, half-life.
Okay,
yeah.
so we fill out the time with some of them are decaying sooner or longer. So it's not just as simple as you described, where how much difference is there in the energy of the mass of what it is and what it can be, because there's a variation in there. And I interpret that question as, how do you get that variation?
Oh well, that's quantum mechanics. So it's statistical.
Don't say that's an answer.
Well, no, but you're right. It's a very deep question.
Yeah.
It's like, and that bothered immensely the early founders of quantum mechanics. So people like Rutherford and those people who Niels Bohr and all those people, and Einstein, it bothered a lot. God does not play dice with the universe. That's essentially what you're saying. You're saying, why does God play dice, as Einstein put it? So the reason
He was late on the mortgage for the universe.
So he plays dice to get some extra cash on the side.
Papa got. Baby. Come on.
Wait, but Brian, I realized just while you were speaking that you did answer her question precisely, because she said, because why do some take longer than others?
Yeah.
And the difference in how many options it has coming out the other side.
Yeah, and the mass difference.
And the mass difference. So that'll say why one will decay in 5 minutes or 10 hours. You can get that.
Yeah.
Okay. Given that, what is going on at the instant that it decays?
It's another
because
question.
does that give me insight into why some will decay sooner and some will decay later, so that it averages out to that half-life?
So what's going on? So you can, it's called the weak nuclear force that's changing these things. So that's part of the standard model. So what actually happens when a neutron turns into a proton? So a down quark turns into an up quark. So what happens is the down quark, you can think of it as emitting a particle, force carrying particle comes off. It's a W minus, which then goes to an electron and a thing called an anti-electron neutrino, actually. But it goes, so the W minus goes off, and then you get a down quark, which is a charge plus 2/3.
Okay.
So you get a minus 1/3 quark going to a plus 2/3 quark, and then you get an electron that comes off. So all the charges are conserved. So you haven't invented electric charge.
You have right.
And
so
also
the
when
sum of all the charges at the end is the same. As
we
the
got
sum
it.
of
And when we think of a neutron decaying to a proton, all that's the engine process going on. That's the gearing that's happening that you just described.
So it's the same kind of picture as why does an electron bounce off another electron? So we'd say, well, because they've got negative charge and negative charges repel. But the particle physics picture of that is that a photon is exchanged between the electrons. So in this case, it's not the electromagnetic force, it's called the weak nuclear force. Basically, the down quark is changing into an up quark, with ultimately the emission of an electron and a neutrino, and the W minus is the particle.
And in the end, when that happens, it's statistical. Wow. We got to deal with that. Are we hiding our awareness of objective reality by dusting it into the bin of probability?
No, it's not the same. That randomness is not the same as the randomness because we don't know everything. So in terms of a gas, let's say, there are things are jiggling around. We don't keep track. We spoke about it earlier. We don't keep track of the billions of molecules in the gas. So there's some statistics comes in because we're averaging over loads. The quantum mechanics is not like that, as far as we can tell. The statistical nature of it is inherently, it's built into the theory, it's built into nature. And that bothered everybody.
So Einstein was just wrong.
That's what,
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you know,
Dumbass.
Einstein didn't like it. It is true that how to interpret that, then it's a whole other episode, right? So you've probably talked to people about the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. Now, that's all. That's this thing. That's all in this. How do you interpret those statistical predictions
Without
the
it,
collapse of the wave function?
without invoking a statistical description.
Yeah, I mean, so it seems that it's a fundamental part of the theory.
You know my favorite part of particle decay?
What's that?
If you accelerate them,
Right.
then they take longer to decay.
That makes sense.
Because Einstein's special theory of relativity.
So, yeah.
That's
you're
so badass.
Going closer to the speed of light, so time literally is slowing down.
And so it takes longer to decay.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
That's very cool, man.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
Time for a few more.
All right, here we go. This is John. He says, hello, Lord Nice and Dr. Tyson, Dr. Cox. John from Arkansas here. You've both explained what a Planck length is and how we will likely never get more accurate measurements beyond this supposed limit. I am wondering if light can have a wavelength that small and if energy would be measurable, or could that be another infinity we need new physics to explain, much like the singularity in a black hole? P.S. Love the show, and Chuck, I figured I'd mention you first for a change. Anyway, yeah.
There is an answer to this.
I love this question.
Yeah.
I would not have been able to answer this question.
The answer is that so the smaller you make the wavelength of a photon, the higher the energy.
Yes.
So
there should be an energy associated with the wavelength that is a Planck length.
yes, and you find out that that's that energy density makes a black hole. So I think so if you think about it, the more you try to probe smaller, and then the black hole would. I think Len Susskind calls it the UV-IR connection. I think that's what he calls it. So the upshot is that if you try to put more and more energy into a smaller and smaller space to see smaller things, the size of the black hole you make increases. It grows.
That's wild.
So the more you try to see smaller things, the less you can see the small things. Right. Because the black hole gets
the universe
bigger.
is diabolical.
Yes.
Yeah. So it stops you. So you can't probe it.
So black holes are in the Cosmological Witness Protection Program.
Yeah.
You can't get in there.
You just can't. No matter what you do, you're not going to. That's amazing. What a great question, bro. That was awesome.
Okay.
All right.
And just remind us briefly about a Planck length. Just put that on the map here.
So you can construct units, fundamental units from things from specifically the speed of light, the strength of gravity, and Planck's constant. So if you take those things and put them together, so you get meters out, you'll get the Planck length. So it's Planck who figured out that it would be good to make units of measurement out of things on which everyone would agree. If you meet an alien, for example, then there's no point in talking about a meter, because what is it? It's the length of your arm or something like that.
Oh, no, it's 1/10 millionth the length of a quarter of the Earth from the North Pole to the equator through the Paris Observatory.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes.
Right, okay.
That's why the circumference of the Earth is 40 million meters. Of the Earth from the...
Then there's no point in talking about a meter, because what is it? It's the length of your arm or something like that.
Oh, no, it's 1/10 millionth the length of a quarter of the Earth from the North Pole to the equator through the Paris Observatory.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes.
Right, okay.
That's why the circumference of the Earth is 40 million meters. Which is, and make that kilometers. It's 40,000 kilometers.
Right, so
is the
it
circumference.
comes from...
That's why it's that even.
Yeah.
It's the French did that. But
So
you're
they're
Brit,
all
so you don't
arbitrary.
care what they did.
Yeah, so they're all arbitrary things that are to do with our planet or our bodies or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But then you could say, well, but the speed of light, Planck's constant, and the strength of gravity, everyone would agree on.
Even aliens.
So
yes.
yeah, because you can measure those. So whatever units you measure them in, you can put them together to make something that looks like a length.
Gotcha.
And that's the Planck length. And it happens to be very, very tiny relative to us.
Right.
Very cool.
So can there be a fabric of space-time that, In other words, if you were to quantize general relativity, you would have to, the Planck length would be fundamental to that. Is that not right?
Yeah. So we think that's telling us something deep about the universe itself.
Okay.
So these are properties of the universe. These things.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, not properties of planets or
right, exactly. All right.
Very, very cool.
Heartburn?
I feed from the bottom, you feed from the top. I live upon morsels you happen to drop, and coffee that somehow on the way upwards, the colors come back, but all on the bottom is blue, gray, and black. The darkness is cold and perception goes wrong, and the night seems to go on incredibly long. So I ask you why, if I'm swimming fine, don't you see anything that you'd like to try? Pantomime mixtures of heaven and earth, jumble events that have less than no worth. Time asleep in a box. And froth, swim to the light source, or fly like a moth. So toss away stuff you don't need in the end, but keep what's important and know who's your friend. So I ask you why, if I'm swimming fine, don't you see anything that you'd like to try? If I'm
Hey guys, Jackson Buhai here with TMZ. Jeffrey Epstein has been a topic of discussion for some time in the media now, with the Department of Justice releasing some of the files, obviously many more to come, but there are stories being released from people that had a connection to him or worked with him that aren't being touched on by the rest of the media that we think it's important for our viewers to know. Back in 2015, a photographer got an assignment that would turn into something far more sinister than he expected. Jeffrey Epstein paid him 20 grand for some photos, but when the deal fell through, a giant bodyguard showed up at his door wearing a black overcoat and leather gloves. Now, the way this played out shows you exactly how Epstein wielded power behind closed doors. Let me break down what actually happened. This story comes directly from photographer Christopher Anderson, who recently shared the full account on his Instagram, along with photos he took of Jeffrey Epstein back in 2015. Anderson recently made headlines after photographing Trump's cabinet for Vanity Fair. But it's this decade-old encounter with Epstein that's making waves now. And according to Anderson's Instagram, nearly a decade ago, New York Magazine reached out to him for what looked like a standard photography gig, and his assignment was to capture images of Jeffrey Epstein for a piece Michael Wolff was writing. The same Michael Wolff who's written extensively about Trump and whose private emails with the convicted sex offender were made public last year when Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released them. Back then, Anderson wasn't particularly familiar with this subject. He'd later share on his Instagram, "I didn't know."
The delay in the full release of the Epstein files has triggered calls for an internal watchdog review into the DOJ. Federal law required the DOJ to release its records on Epstein by December 19th, but government lawyers told a judge this week that only 1% of those files have been reviewed and released. Now, several Epstein survivors, lawmakers, and watchdog groups are asking for a review into the DOJ to see if it violated the law. Let's bring in CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen. So Jake, good to see you. Explain the legal question here and what this watchdog group would look into.
Good morning, Vlad. The legal question here is whether the Department of Justice violated a law that required it to release all of these Epstein documents by December 19th. Now, what we know, Vlad, is that Attorney General Pam Bondi said that the Justice Department got millions of files around the holidays that they had not yet reviewed, and that those files are actively underway. However, at the same time, Vlad, we know that these watchdog groups are asking the Inspector General's office at the DOJ, which is an outside independent monitor of the Justice Department, to potentially go through and figure out whether the Department of Justice is deliberately slow-walking this release, and whether there are any other details they can come up with that would show that the DOJ is deliberately not listening to this law that we know bipartisan support forced President Trump to sign. He signed it, and that the DOJ said they would fully comply with. That has not happened so far, and we have not seen a new release of documents in the last couple of weeks.
So the DOJ also moved to unseal these grand jury transcripts of 2 correctional officers charged with falsifying Epstein records. Explain that to me.
Well, that's right, Vlad. These 2 officers worked at the correctional facility where Jeffrey Epstein was found dead. We know that they were charged federally for improperly filling out forms, lying on these forms. They were never actually prosecuted. They reached a deferred prosecution agreement, but we know in the indictments of them, a federal law enforcement official testified. There are about 45 pages of testimony, and the DOJ has to move through to go through some of these mechanisms to unseal these documents, Vlad. But again, going back to our earlier conversation point, this all should have been done before that December 19th deadline. It has not been done. We'll see what the judge does in terms of unsealing or not, and what new information we may learn about what these agents knew and what they potentially covered up in filling out forms regarding checks of Jeffrey Epstein's jail cell around the time of his death.
Really important information there from Jake Rosen. Jake, thank you.
There's one thing the best communicators always do, but most never try. You see, most people actually don't stop and think before they speak. They just blurt out the first thing that's on their mind, which causes them to ramble and speak without clarity. But if there's one thing you should do before opening your mouth, it's learn to think in frameworks. For example, your boss puts you on the spot with a question and you haven't prepared for it. You can answer them by using the PARA framework. The P stands for point, A stands for action.
Hoping you're receiving the DO. Proven essential oils.
For whole mouth health, Listerine. Wash
There are things that they have a vested interest in exploring for their constituents, because again, their constituents are upset about this. They've been protesting outside of this building every single day. So again, they were allowed onto the federal property. They were brought into the lobby, but essentially they were told once there, we're not allowing you any more access than this.
Nnamdi, we'll stay close to you. Thank you. MS Now's Nnamdi Egwuonwu is in Minneapolis. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
No one has ever loved me like my dad. For as long as I can remember, he's been my best friend and biggest fan. He always kept me safe.
My goodness, you did so good.
And taught me to stand on my own 2 feet.
Watch your steps. Let's go right. Let's go.
He was behind me every step of the way. He gave me the world. So I want to make his a little safer. With a Safe Step walk-in tub, I can show him that. With the Lowe's Step-In, he can easily get in, sit back, and have a relaxing bath, giving us both peace of mind. Because he means the world to me.
1-800-760-4455. This is an urgent appeal from Save the Children.
أنا أخواتي بيموتوا من الجوع ما نصير تغذية كمان بيغوا بالليل بيبكوا من الجوع يعني ما بنحسن يعني نعمل لهم أكل أنا بضل باخذها بسكتها وما بتسكت كمان مو بس أختي صايرة جوعانة وأخواتي كل سنة 11 ويحمسوني واقفين
For Tariq, Asha, and Kaltoon, watching their siblings experience the pain of malnutrition is heartbreaking. They are among the millions of children at greatest risk in the global hunger emergency. We need your support right now to help save children's lives. Please call or go online to give just $10 a month, only 33 cents a day. You can help us provide food, essentials, life-saving medical care, and help children who need it most. We need 1,000 new monthly donors this month to reach children around the world and right here at home. Please help children like Kaltoon so they don't have to watch their siblings suffer. Please call or go online now with your monthly gift of just $10, only 33 cents a day. You can help provide food, medicine, care, and protection by calling or going online right now and giving just $10 a month. Your donation today can help secure additional grants, which can multiply the impact of your support up to 10 times. And when you call with your credit card, we will send you this Save the Children tote bag as a thank you for your support. Your small monthly donation of just $10 could be the reason a hungry child survives. Show them they're not alone. Please call or go online to givetosave.org to help save lives.
President Trump said he would accept the Nobel Peace Prize if last year's winner, Venezuela's opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, offered it to him. Spoiler alert, that's not how the Nobel Peace Prize works. But who's going to tell that to the guy who dropped bombs on her country last weekend? Machado and Trump plan to meet next week, and after the break, I'm going to tell you everything we can expect from that conversation. Plus, the December jobs report shows that 2025 was the worst year for hiring since 2020. Remember when we had the pandemic? After employers added only 50,000 new jobs last month. The former chair of the U.S. Council of Economic Advisors, Jared Bernstein, joins me next to explain what this data means for you in 2026. And another meeting of the Velshi Band Book Club this week features one of Kurt Vonnegut's most famous works, Slaughterhouse-Five, which we will be discussing with his daughter, Nanette. A personal, in-depth look at the inner workings of Kurt Vonnegut's mind is still ahead. Another hour of Velshi begins after the break.
Every Sunday night, he can't sleep. But not this Sunday.
When you really need to sleep, ZzzQuil has no equal. Get the deeply restorative sleep you need. ZzzQuil, not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep.
Whether you're a professional driver or just a fan, vehicle breakdowns are costly.
It started tugging.
The last thing I remember is just the engine cut out. I knew pretty quickly that I had a pretty severe issue on my hands.
If your check engine light comes on tomorrow, the repair could easily cost thousands.
Imagine me paying out of pocket $4,000 or $5,000.
I was not ready to spend a few $1,000s.
It was like almost a $6,000 job.
But with Endurance, you could never pay out of pocket for a costly repair again. Plus, your rate stays the same no matter how many claims you file.
I've had 5 claims for over $12,000.
I've had 6 claims worth over $4,000.
I've had 3 claims and saved over $3,700.
I've had 2 claims for over $4,600, and my rate hasn't changed.
Use any certified mechanic you want. Just bring your car in, and Endurance will pay them direct. All major parts are covered.
What I like about Endurance, they don't play games, there's no middleman. They're a solid company.
With Endurance, your car repair costs go way down, while your car's life expectancy goes way up, allowing you to drive more and pay less.
Something is going to break down. Make Endurance pay for it.
They covered a $14,000 engine replacement.
So, who's going to pay for your next car repair? You or Endurance?
Whether you put 10,000 or 100,000 miles a year on your car, if it's less than 20 years old, Endurance has you covered with unlimited miles. Plus, your plan covers 24/7 roadside assistance anywhere in the country. Call right now to get $300 off any plan, plus a full year of our top-tier elite benefits, a $2,000 value free. And all Endurance plans come with a 30-day money-back guarantee. But you have to act now. Call 1-833-608-4248 for a free quote. That's 1-833-608-4248.
48% of Americans don't get enough magnesium, which is vital for bone, nerve, and muscle health. I recommend Cunol's Magnesium Glycinate. It's formulated for high absorption and is gentle on the stomach. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Oh my God, I won. Guys, I just saw someone win an iPad for under $10.
I got this amazing Japanese knife set for just 75 cents.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56.
There's millions of fast auctions and always something to win on DealDash.com. And today, new users get a $50 bonus credit. Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you'll save.
And shipping is always free.
This is the story of the one. The one knows that when the big game is days away, the unexpected can put everything on the line. But with a solid game plan and a teammate like Grainger that she can rely on to deliver the product she needs when she needs it, she's confident that she will always win the day. And her team will do the same. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
We're following developments out of Minneapolis this morning where protests continue after the ICE shooting death of 37-year-old Renee Good, and where local and state officials have launched their own investigation after being shut out of the federal investigation and being denied access to evidence. 3 members of Congress have been trying this morning to make an oversight visit to an ICE facility in Minneapolis. MS Now's reporter Nnamdi Egwuonwu is there. As you know, we were just talking to him. We're expecting to hear from Congresswoman Ilhan Omar any moment. She's talking to the press now, and we're going to try and get her over to Nnamdi's mic for a conversation with her. So we are going to get back to Minneapolis as soon as that happens. I'm probably going to have to interrupt my next discussion to do that, but that's okay. We'll manage it all. We are going to start this hour in the moment with President Trump's plans for a post-Nicolas Maduro Venezuela, which he pitched to the heads of nearly 24 American oil companies yesterday at the White House. Trump says the United States will run Venezuela for potentially the next several years at least. He also says that elections may eventually happen in Venezuela, but not until the United States prioritizes something else first.
Do you foresee a Venezuela that will have free and fair elections?
I do see that. I think that's happening. But before we do that, it's going to take a while to do. We have to rebuild the country. They couldn't have an election. They wouldn't even know how to have an election right now. We're going to rebuild the oil and the oil infrastructure. We'll be in charge of it. It's going to do great and make a lot of money. And we're going to take it from there, but we're going to rebuild the country, and ultimately you're going to have elections. Think of what we've done. I mean, we've taken over a whole country. We've taken $4 billion worth of oil in one day, and that'll increase.
We've taken $4 billion worth of oil in one day, and that'll increase. After publicly saying for months that America's operations near Venezuela were about drugs and about Maduro being an illegitimate leader and the head of a narco-terrorist ring, well, that's run dry, pun intended. At least Donald Trump is now being obvious about what this incursion into Venezuela is all about. He's speaking quite fluently about its assets, its oil, but vaguely, if at all, about democracy. Venezuela's sovereignty, like Greenland's and maybe even Canada's, is negotiable in Donald Trump's rhetoric. Its resources, however, are urgent. During his press conference 1 week ago explaining the mission, Donald Trump invoked the Monroe Doctrine. So let's talk about that for just a minute. The Monroe Doctrine, articulated by then-President James Monroe in 1823, declared that European powers were no longer welcome to colonize or interfere in the Western Hemisphere, and that further attempts to do so would be viewed as a threat to U.S. security. This was not a promise of democracy or self-determination for America's Western neighbors. It was a warning to other world powers. It didn't say Latin America would govern itself. It simply said European colonial powers would not. Fast forward to today, 500 years after the conquistadors arrived with swords and crosses. The tools of colonialism have changed, but the instinct to colonize has not. The message is still the same. What's yours is interesting. What you decide to do with it is conditional. To be clear, Venezuela is today an almost fully failed democratic state. But like many failed states, it did not fail in a vacuum. It was weakened by corruption, by mismanagement, by repressive regimes, and later by outside forces. It is neither stable nor well run. It has experienced economic collapse and periods of hyperinflation, with levels of inflation hitting more than 1,000,000%. But it once was a place with a novel post-colonial idea that Venezuela's oil belonged to, wait for it, Venezuela. Not to foreign companies, not to Washington, not to global markets, but to the Venezuelan state and its people. In pursuit of this ideal, the former president Hugo Chavez nationalized oil operations aggressively, pushed out foreign control, and used some of that oil revenue to fund social programs. He was a populist. He was polarizing. He consolidated power. He was anti-democratic, and he was widely viewed as corrupt. And he was deliberately confrontational. But in nationalizing Venezuela's oil production, he nationalized defiance. And that made him a big problem. Because once a leader declares that their country's natural resources, in this case, the most valuable strategic commodity on earth, is not up for negotiation, the argument is no longer about democracy or governance. It's about control and ownership. Hugo Chavez was, by and large, elected legitimately multiple times. His protege, Nicolas Maduro, was first elected in 2013 in a close and contested race following Chavez's death. But it was Maduro's 2018 re-election, conducted after opposition parties were barred or sidelined with low turnout and little credible oversight, that was widely rejected as illegitimate by international observers, regional governments, and much of the democratic world. That judgment was not manufactured by the United States. It was hard-earned. Here's the pivot that matters, though. Recognizing illegitimacy is not the same thing as restoring democracy. And once Maduro was deemed illegitimate, the underlying goal shifted. It was no longer about rebuilding Venezuelan institutions or empowering Venezuelan voters or even stabilizing Venezuela for the sake of hemispheric security. It was about something more concrete, or actually something more slippery. It was about oil. It was about the control of Venezuela's oil. Protecting democracy was a red herring. Maduro's illegitimacy became not a reason to protect democracy, but a justification to bypass it. Now, it's true that Venezuela has become uniquely bad at producing its own oil. At best, it's producing about a third of the oil that it was producing at its peak around the turn of the millennium under Chavez. Some of that is because of Chavez and Maduro's mismanagement and corruption. Some of it was because of punishment by the United States through sanctions, isolation, and economic pressure for insisting that control over its resources was non-negotiable. Listen carefully to Donald Trump's language over the last week.
It's very important. We couldn't let them get away with it. You know, they stole our oil. We built that whole industry there, and they just took it over like we were nothing, and we had a president that decided not to do anything about it. So we did something about it. We're going to take back the oil that, frankly, we should have taken back a long time ago. A lot of money is coming out of the ground. Decades ago, the United States built Venezuela's oil industry at tremendous expense with American skill, technology, know-how, and dollars. But those assets were stolen from us. They stole our assets like we were babies. And the United States did absolutely nothing about it. So now we're doing everything about it.
Note that he does not talk about restoring Venezuelan institutions. He does not talk about democracy. He does not talk about civil society. He just talks about oil. Venezuelan oil, oil that literally comes out of Venezuela's ground, which he says is not Venezuelan at all, but it is mismanaged and stolen American property. When Trump explains the pressing need to go into Venezuela, he makes not a single sustained appeal to protect Venezuelan democracy. He makes no serious effort to center Venezuelans themselves. America's adventurism in Venezuela is not about liberation or democracy. It's not even about stability. It is about extraction. History may not remember the press conference from 1 week ago, but history has never forgotten this pattern, instantly recognizable to anyone even vaguely familiar with how colonialism actually works. This was never about Venezuelan drugs. This was never about saving Venezuelan democracy. This was never about the Venezuelan people. This was always about Venezuelan oil. Joining me now is Ben Rhodes, former Deputy National Security Advisor for the Obama White House, co-host of Pod Save the World. Rhodes is also an MS Now political and national security analyst. I don't know, Ben, whether you get frustrated by extraction and imperialism, or whether to be thankful that Donald Trump makes this very easy on us because we don't actually have to parse his words.
No, I mean, he says all the quiet part out loud, Ali, and that is helpful to some extent. I mean, first of all, it does make you wonder why we had to put up with months of this completely bogus narrative about drug trafficking and even to blow up boats in the Caribbean because Venezuela was a narco-terrorist state, which was not true. But now we're really down to brass tacks, and it's basically the actually quintessential imperial scenario. This is like the East India Company, you know, coming into India and saying, we will have control over all your resources and we'll just kind of minister to the state through you. The problem is, one, that we fought some really big wars in the 20th century, which is where this mindset tends to lead. Two, it's not going to work. It's going to take years to rebuild the Venezuelan oil industry. The Venezuelan government that remains is not interested in the United States just taking all that oil. I don't think the Venezuelan people will be either. So I just don't think this is going to work, right? And third, nobody's asking for this. The Venezuelan people are not asking for the United States to come run it as a colony. The American people are not asking for the United States to go down there. Even the oil companies, who are the only people that Donald Trump seems to care about, looked a little flummoxed here. We don't need to go spend $100 billion down there. By the way, if they rebuild the Venezuelan oil industry, that's going to not employ Americans. Those aren't the people going to be building it. And number two, it's going to compete with American oil. So none of this makes any sense.
Yes, and that's an important point. Thanks for leaning into the economics lane for a second. Oil is under $60 a barrel. It will take years and many tens of billions of dollars to get Venezuelan oil up to scratch. And like Iraq, there will be security concerns. So there'll be, because the oil has to travel from where it gets produced to where it gets refined. This American oil companies seem to be going along with this because these days with Trump, you go along to get along to go along. But this isn't even economically sound at the moment.
No, it's not. And it won't help. You know, what they'll try to say is that, you know, he's going to try to help deal with the affordability crisis by getting this. It will take so long for there to be like a meaningful upswing in the amount of Venezuelan oil onto the market that it somehow impacts the price at the pump, that it has nothing to do with that. This is about Donald Trump wanting the personal aggrandizement of running another country. He keeps saying he's running another country, and his capacity to make some profit for a very small number of already wealthy supporters of his. Who knows what corruption might exist there? We always talk about corruption, you know, in these foreign countries like Venezuela. Our government is giving them all a run for their money right now. And that's all this is about. It's not really about anything else.
You know, it's interesting because you talked about the East India Company. The Dutch East India Company did the same thing in South Africa. I mean, there's lots of historical examples of this, but there's one very current one. 73 years ago, America did this same exact thing in Iran. about oil. And we are still, literally, right now, we still live the residual consequences of that. Iran continues to be unstable because of our adventurism in 1953.
Yeah, this is what is so frustrating about Trump, is that he thinks if he punts the consequences out farther, that he won't be blamed for them. You're exactly right. We are still dealing with the consequences. Very similar story. Iran has a nationalist leader who wants to nationalize the oil industry, democratically elected by the Iranian people, widely supported by the Iranian people, and the CIA, together with the British, oust that leader and help install the Shah. And fast forward to 1979, we get a revolution against, in part, the United States, and obviously against the Shah as well. And we're still dealing with that. And this is the history of kind of all the American interventions, even in Latin America, where our interventions tend to bring about either a very repressive right-wing government, as we saw in places like Chile or in Argentina, or our interventions tend to kind of devolve into potential civil war, as we saw in Guatemala, as we saw in El Salvador, as we saw in Nicaragua. Now, people may say that's terrible for the people in those countries, but are U.S. interests protected? No, they're not, because the mass migration that Donald Trump was elected in part to bring to an end has a lot of roots in American intervention in Central America, right? America's support for kind of pretty corrupt systems in Venezuela helped bring about Hugo Chavez, right? So one thing leads to another, and this kind of imperial mindset always has secondary consequences that don't appear on paper when you're drawing up the empire plan.
That's right. Ben, thank you. Hang out for a second while we take a quick break. We'll continue the conversation on the other side. Ben Rhodes.
The Winter Blue sale is now on. Visit sandals.com today.
Life, diabetes, there's no slowing down. Each day is a unique blend of people to see and things to do. That's why you choose Glucerna to help manage blood sugar response. Uniquely designed with Carb Steady. Glucerna, bring on the day.
Good morning, room. Good morning, moon. Good morning, life. Good morning, wife. Good morning, little bear. Good morning, parents everywhere.
It bothered us too that your employees weren't taking full advantage of their retirement plans, so Vanguard created something to give them a little nudge. With Vanguard's Well on Your Way, 87% of employees took action to improve their financial well-being. Vanguard, discipline that delivers.
If you're in pain but need to stay mobile, you need Copperfit Rapid Relief, the revolutionary line of hot and cold therapy wraps that keep you mobile while you recover, no matter where it hurts. A breakthrough adjustable design with a soft gel pack insert in a lightweight copper-infused wrap for targeted hot or cold pain-relieving therapy of sore muscles and achy joints. If it hurts, Copperfit's got you covered. Get the full line of Copperfit Rapid Relief wraps, available at Walmart pharmacies.
At Consumer Cellular, we only hire real humans right here in America.
That's why we're ranked #1 in customer satisfaction.
I wish I was human.
It's pretty great. Right now, get your second month free. Call Consumer Cellular.
Over the years, you've talked to her about boys. You've talked to her till you were blue in the face. You've talked about parenting tips, college prep, and who's in the family photos. Now it's time to talk about what living looks like for you. For over 30 years, Right at Home has been providing seniors the tools they need to plan the next chapter of their lives and the care they need to stay where they want to be. Right at Home. Call or visit our website and let's start talking about living.
When your gut is out of balance, your body gives you signs. So if you're frustrated with occasional bloating or gas, help stop the frustration and start taking Align every day. Align Probiotic was specifically designed by gastroenterologists to help relieve your occasional bloating and gas, so you can enjoy life. When you feel the signs, it's time to try Align.
Your
gut is like a garden, growing both good bacteria and bad. That balance is key to a healthy gut environment. Benefiber's plant-based prebiotic fiber gently nourishes the good bacteria, working with your body to help your gut and you flourish effortlessly every day. Grow what feels good with Benefiber.
At The RealReal, over 10,000 new arrivals drop every day, so you can shop all this from right here. The best part? It's up to 90% off. The RealReal, authenticated luxury resale. Shop now with code TRR20 for 20% off. Terms apply.
Jump into 88 Fortune Slots, the free-to-play mobile slots game of the year. And now you get a chance to win a car just for playing. Free fall into the iconic 88 Fortune Slots action with million-point jackpots and high roller gameplay. Land mega wins and play the latest game straight from the casino floor. Download 88 Fortune Slots for free and register for a chance to win a car. 88 Fortune Slots. Fortune favors the bold.
I'm always shopping The RealReal.
They drop over 10,000 new arrivals every day.
Gucci, Dior, Louis Vuitton, Hermes,
Cartier.
All up to 90% off retail.
Millions of people, millions of possibilities. Visit TheRealReal.com for $25 off your first order. Terms apply.
We were just talking about Iran. Massive protests continue in Tehran and in cities across that country, fueled by worsening economic hardship. The protests were initially initiated by business owners, merchants, and shopkeepers, which is really interesting because those are groups which tend to keep a lower profile under Iran's repressive regime. It's also been joined by students who have always been at the forefront of Iranian protests, all the way back to the 1979 revolution, by the way. These protests have since spread. Just look at these videos. This is Iran. You're not allowed to do this in Iran. These protests have spread to encompass anti-regime protesters as well. At least 36 people, by the way, have been killed. President Trump has jumped in, saying that the U.S. is, quote, locked and loaded and will start shooting if protesters are killed. Ben Rhodes, who was talking to me a few moments ago, played an important part in getting the Iran nuclear deal across the finish line back in 2015. I want to bring him back into the conversation. Ben, I want your take on what's happening in Iran. This does feel a little different. I will remind people, there are often protests in Iran. They generally don't get to this level.
No, and what you're seeing increasingly is it feels like it's broadly against the regime itself. You know, we've seen protests in Iran because of economic conditions. We saw incredible protests in the Women Life Freedom movement a couple of years ago, which people should know those protests succeeded to a large extent in some ways, because you start to see women uncovered in parts of Iran. You start to see people resisting the regime's capacity to tell them what to do. And so each of those protest movements has kind of been a chip in the armor of the regime, which is weak and the economy's a mess. And so this does feel different. It feels very widespread, cross-sectoral, like you said. Different parts of society are out there, not just middle-class students. You've got people clearly frustrated with the state of the economy and this kind of sclerotic, aging regime that has no answers for them.
I want to remind people, Iran is an actual theocracy. It's not just a government that tries to push religion on people. It's an actual theocracy. It is a capital crime in Iran to say things that are critical of the supreme leader, the Ayatollah. And yet we are seeing banners and signs and people giving interviews saying this is not my leader, and calling for the downfall of the regime. I want to remind you, these are capital crimes. So to have business people involved, generally students get involved in these things all over the world. That's expected. The shopkeepers, they can come and find you and close your shop and arrest you and put you in Evin prison. It's quite a thing to see shopkeepers and small business people involved in this.
That's right. And just shows you the level of frustration that they must be feeling. And frankly, that kind of fear that the regime counts on seems to be dissipating, right? And that's when things can get very serious for a regime, if the people all of a sudden kind of collectively stop being afraid. Now, the supreme leader is very old, and part of this is also that people know his days are numbered. He's not going to be around that long. He's the longest-serving dictator in the world. What comes next, though, is a big question. You could get rid of the supreme leader. You could even get rid of the way the theocracy currently runs, which these ayatollahs in charge, and then a kind of nominal democratically elected government underneath it. But what comes next is always the big question in these scenarios. And there, you still have a lot of different factions in Iran, including heavily armed ones like the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, that are not at all small d democratic, that could fill a power vacuum. So hopeful to see the Iranian people standing up like this. You hope what they can do is channel it into something that changes the system in a more democratic direction, rather than having a kind of collapse and power vacuum that is filled by potentially equally bad guys.
Ben, thanks as always for your analysis. Ben Rhodes is a former Deputy National Security Advisor for the Obama White House. He's the co-host of Pod Save the World, and he is an MS Now National Security Analyst. I want to go right back to Minneapolis now. A group of House of Representatives members were attempting to gain access to an ICE facility there to conduct their statutorily protected oversight visit. It sounds like they were denied access to the full facility. Officials were clashing with protesters outside. I want to get to the Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar of Minnesota. She's joining me on the phone. She was just there and attempted to conduct that oversight. Congresswoman Omar, thank you for joining us. Tell us what happened, please.
Yeah, good to be here with you, Ali. We're here this morning trying to fulfill our congressional oversight duties to look at the Whibley Detention Center along with Congresswoman Angie Craig and Congresswoman Kelly Morrison. We were initially allowed to enter the building and shortly after that informed that we had to wait until higher ups were able to come speak with us. It looked like they might have been an order that maybe came from Washington to deny us the proper access that we needed to complete those oversight duties that we are obligated as members of Congress.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear. You're obligated. You have a right to. You do not have any obligation to send advance notice or get any clearance from Washington to be able to conduct oversight of a federal detention center.
Of course. And these denials have happened a little while back, and it was a district court judge in Washington, D.C. that we affirmed that members of Congress, not only because of our Article 1 duties, but we also have oversight obligations to fulfill when we do appropriate resources to make sure that those resources are being utilized in a proper way.
There is we're looking at pictures from outside the facility. There's a fairly heavily armed presence there. These are pictures from yesterday, but in Minneapolis in general, there's a fairly heavily armed presence versus protesters who are protesters. They're First Amendment protesters. They're not exhibiting any acts of violence. You and I have had many conversations about protests in Minneapolis. Can you tell me give me a little color as to what this situation looks like Minneapolis-wide?
I mean, protest is as American as apple pie. People come out to register their opposition to what they do not like or want to accept. And it is important for people to be able to do that in a democracy. What we are seeing right now, not only with the surge of 2,000 federal agents, but now we have another 1,000 apparently coming in, is essentially trying to create this kind of environment where people feel intimidated, threatened, and terrorized. And I think the ultimate goal of Kristi Noem and President Trump is to agitate people enough where they are able to revoke the Insurrection Act and institute martial law, because there is no other justifiable way to describe what is taking place in Minneapolis at this moment. There is no justifiable reason why this number of agents are here in our state. They're not sending forensic investigators to look into fraud. Since Trump has come in, we are still prosecuting the people that were investigated and set up for prosecution for fraud under the Biden administration and the Biden AG. We are not seeing the level of descriptions that they normally provide about the hardened criminals that they are picking up. What we are seeing is that they're stopping people, they are profiling people, they are threatening those that are trying to track their movements and try to get information on what is happening to their neighbors. We are seeing dozens and dozens of citizens being arrested. This is really a chaotic situation that is unavoidable, but the administration and Noem think it is a good PR tool for them to use to make Minneapolis look like it is ground zero for criminality, when all that we are seeing is our neighbors lovingly showing up for one another to protect one another.
But as you and I talked about some weeks ago, when Donald Trump's focus switched to Minneapolis and Minnesota, you warned someone this is going to end up badly, and it has ended up badly. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, thank you for joining us. I want to go to Democratic Congresswoman Angie Craig. She was part of that group of members of Congress who attempted to get into the ICE facility today. She's joining us now from outside of that facility. Congresswoman Craig, thank you for joining us. Can you give us your perspective on, first of all, what's going on around the area? Because Nnamdi was saying that the authorities were getting into it with some of the protesters, including some pepper spray, but in fact that this appears to be an entirely peaceful demonstration.
Yeah, it's entirely peaceful here on the ground. The three members of Congress, myself, Congresswoman Kelly Morrison, and Ilhan Omar, we came together this morning to perform our congressional duties of oversight on this detention center here in Minneapolis. You know, we were surrounded by a number of members of the press as we attempted to enter, and my understanding is that some people did get pepper sprayed. We did not. We were initially allowed into the facility, but that visit was abruptly cut short, and we were told that we would not be able to fulfill that duty as a member of Congress.
What reason do you get given for that? Because I don't know. You carry around the statute with you? This is not. There's no real basis for not allowing members of Congress. And I just want to put a little meat on these bones. You people spend money on our behalf. You appropriate money on our behalf, money that gets spent at these detention centers. Hence your right and obligation to inspect them without notice.
Yeah, it was completely nonsensical. We were told because this facility is being funded by the One Big Beautiful Bill, not the Congressional Appropriations Act, that we would not be allowed to enter the facility. You know that's complete nonsense, and you know you actually said it. I did have the recent court ruling from December 17th from the District of Columbia with me at the facility. They refused to look at it. I informed them that they were violating the law. They said they didn't care. So
wow.
Look, this is consistent with exactly what we're seeing on the streets by the Department of Homeland Security. You know, ICE Barbie has Secretary Noem. She has told this agency to go rogue, to not follow the law. And frankly, that's exactly what we experienced inside this detention center today.
So you drew the line because these are not separate things. You're dealing with immigration enforcement and detention at a federal facility, but that's not disconnected to what we've been talking about that's been happening in Minneapolis, the shooting of Renee Good, which was technically, according to Kristi Noem, immigration enforcement. But neither does that seem to be the case, nor do any of the 4 videos that we've seen from different angles, including one released by the Department of Homeland Security, back up the administration's claims about Renee Good being a domestic terrorist or trying to run down an ICE officer. None of this seems to make any sense or be true or comport with the law.
Well, look, J.D. Vance has been sent in to try to clean this up. Because even the video that emerged yesterday from the actual officer, first of all, if you think you are at risk of imminent harm, do you carry around your cell phone and take video footage of the encounter? Look, Renee Good should not be dead today. Members of Congress should be able, because that is our responsibility. That is us doing our jobs to tour a detention facility. The Trump administration, the Department of Homeland Security, they are lawless at this point. And I hope every single Minnesotan, especially who lives in a congressional district represented by a Republican, speaks out and calls their member of Congress now. It has to stop. And these Republican members have got to start speaking out.
Yeah, this is not, nothing about here, this should be partisan whatsoever. Congresswoman, thank you for joining us. Democratic Congresswoman Angie Craig of Minnesota. We're going to take a quick break. More Velshi after this.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. This holiday season, the frigid temperatures won't show any mercy on the animals who've been left outside in the cold. Animals who've been abandoned and neglected, who are freezing with no shelter. They're fighting to stay alive, and every moment they spend suffering could be one moment too late. Visit joinaspca.org, call this toll-free number, or scan the code on your screen to sign up with your $19 monthly gift. And if you've ever thought about helping, this is the time. It's just 63 cents a day to help rescue animals who are suffering. We need 3,000 new supporters in the next 30 days so we can rescue these innocent animals from cruelty. Please make this the moment that you say, I won't stand by while they suffer.
Through the years, we all will be together.
If you're wondering, will my support make a difference, I can tell you, it will. Thousands of lives are on the line. And because this situation is so urgent, we're asking you to join in the next 10 minutes. If you do, we'll send you this free welcome kit to thank you for helping an animal today. It's the season of giving, and your monthly donation could be the greatest gift you give to an animal who needs you. Go online, call, or scan now.
You want to file free? Hit it.
Oh my God, I won. Guys, I just saw someone win an iPad for under $10.
I got this amazing Japanese knife set for just 75 cents.
I got this KitchenAid stand mixer for only $56.
There's millions of fast auctions and always something to win on DealDash.com. And today, new users get a $50 bonus credit. Go to DealDash.com right now and see how much you'll save.
And shipping is always free.
If history has taught us anything, it's not to root against the underdog, against impossible odds. You don't stand down. You swing first. Kalshi.
Renee Good, sadly, was not the first nor the last person shot by federal agents since Donald Trump's deportation crackdown began. According to data compiled by The Trace, which is a nonprofit focused on gun violence in the United States, there have been 16 incidents in which immigration agents opened fire since July of last year, July of 2025. Renee Good was the 15th. One day after she was shot and killed, an immigration officer shot and wounded 2 Venezuelan migrants in their car in Portland, Oregon. The Trump administration says that that pair was, believe it or not, connected to a Venezuelan gang. And despite growing unease and disapproval from Americans across the spectrum at the aggressive tactics that are being used by Trump's immigration forces, all signs point to a ramping up of those tactics. And it's backed by billions of dollars in new funding. Thanks to Donald Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, ICE and Border Patrol will have $170 billion through September of 2029 to execute his mass deportation campaign. The White House has been vocal that the goal is to hit 1 million deportations within a year, aiming to hit 3,000 arrests in a day. And what's the first step in further boosting Trump's immigration crackdown? Recruitment. Hiring thousands of new officers whom the administration refers to as, quote, homeland defenders. Homeland defenders. Let that sink in for a second. DHS has publicly dangled signing bonuses, premium pay, student loan repayment, all to entice recruits. But at a time where many communities are fearful of ICE's presence and concerned about officers' abilities to operate lawfully, DHS has rolled back the qualifications. DHS has eliminated the age cap on new recruits, allowing people older than 40 and as young as 18 to join the ranks of ICE. Not only that, some recruits are seeing the 13-week training program cut down to just 6 weeks. 47 days, according to reporting by The Atlantic. To put this in perspective, to become a manager at the Cheesecake Factory, which I like a lot, you are required to complete 6 to 8 weeks of hands-on training. More training to be a Cheesecake Factory manager than to be an ICE recruit who carries a gun. And you may have seen the social media posts calling for recruits willing to, quote, defend the homeland or perform their so-called sacred duty, or to, quote, return this land. Return this land? To whom exactly? This recruitment strategy appears to be aimed at a very specific audience, one that ideologically aligns with the president's anti-immigration agenda. According to an internal document reviewed by the Washington Post, ICE is planning to spend $100 million in the next year on what it calls a wartime recruitment strategy, using online influencers and geo-targeted advertising to recruit gun rights supporters and military enthusiasts. According to the Post's reporting, quote, ICE recruitment ads, the plan said, would be shown to people with an interest in military and veterans affairs, physical training, or conservative news and politics, and would target people whose lifestyles are patriotic. According to the vice president.
I think we're going to see those deportation numbers ramp up as we get more and more people online, working for ICE, going door to door and making sure that if you're an illegal alien, you've got to get out of this country, and if you want to come back, apply through the proper channel.
All right, I want to continue this discussion with the Democratic Congresswoman for Minnesota, Kelly Morrison. She was part of the group of lawmakers who were just denied access to the ICE facility in Minneapolis. Congresswoman Morrison, great to see you. Thank you for being with us. These two things are connected. The oversight you're doing there at this facility is connected with this immigration and so-called immigration enforcement push. And I say so-called because what happened on Wednesday in Minneapolis does not seem to have anything to do with a legitimate attempt to enforce immigration laws.
No, Allie, it sure doesn't. You know, Minnesota has been through so much over this past year. We are a resilient and compassionate community, but ICE is here. This surge of ICE agents is doing nothing to keep our communities safer. It is sowing chaos, it is sowing fear, and it is sowing terror, and it has now cost a Minnesotan her life. So I joined my colleagues Ilhan Omar and Angie Craig this morning to attempt to conduct congressional oversight of this ICE detention facility here in Minneapolis. We were briefly given entry and then by actually some local officials, and then very abruptly were told to leave. We met with two of the commanding officers, and they told us that the reason we were not able to stay and meet with any of the detainees is because the funding for ICE came through the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So they are not following the law here. This is very concerning, and I made it actually a direct plea to these commanding officers that we are grieving here in Minnesota. People are afraid, and it would do a lot to bring down the temperature if they allowed us to go in and have some transparency for the people of Minnesota, and they very abruptly denied it without explanation.
I was just talking to Congresswoman Omar and then Congresswoman Craig, who said that she had the December 17th court decision that indicated that,
that's right.
I mean, one shouldn't have to show it, because if you work at a federal facility, you must know that members of Congress have a right to be there without notice. That said, that doesn't make any sense. The reason they gave you doesn't make any sense, that if the funding came from the big beautiful bill, that is a congressionally passed bill. That's still money appropriated by Congress. That distinction doesn't make any sense.
That's exactly right. And, you know, Allie, as a physician, one of the reasons, as a member of Congress as well, of course, that I wanted to see the conditions inside was because one of the things that I am so worried about in this moment in the history of our country is our humanity. We have to step back and take the 10,000-foot view. What are we doing here? The great American experiment should not be based on fear. The American people want transparency. They want to understand what is happening to their country. And so we were unable to speak with any of the detainees. We briefly saw a group of young appearing men sitting on a very narrow bench, holding their heads in their hands. There were no beds. There were no blankets. They said there were showers. We did not see any showers. But we were not given the opportunity to conduct actual oversight. We were told that most of them stay less than 12 hours, but then they did admit that occasionally they were there longer. So this is just, none of this is okay. And I'm calling for ICE to leave Minnesota right now. At a minimum, we need a national pause on these ICE operations while oversight and a thorough investigation into what happened to Renee Good here in Minneapolis is performed.
And thorough would mean that your state authorities are allowed to be part of that investigation, something that the federal authorities have not allowed at the moment. I want to ask you something as a physician. You and I have talked many times about that part of your history. We've been watching the 4 videos that are out there and examining them, mostly with respect to guns and angles and the car and where the steering wheel was and where the car was pointed. One thing that has been missed is the fact that there was a doctor on site who attempted to render aid and was prevented from doing so and was told, we have our medics on the way. There is no world at all in which a doctor should not be permitted, if they seek to help. In fact, you take an oath about this. You are compelled to try and help someone. And it doesn't matter whether they are a criminal or not a criminal, a citizen, not a criminal. It doesn't matter.
That's exactly right. And this is one of the most painful things of that whole episode is a physician was there offering to render help and aid to this woman who had just been shot in the head, and he was refused access to someone who was apparently still alive. Again, I go back to this is a human being. These are human beings. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect and have access to potentially life-saving medical care.
Congresswoman, thank you again for being with us. We appreciate it. Democratic Congresswoman Kelly Morrison of Minnesota. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
She's really getting up there. Yeah, she is. Don't feel your age. Act your age. Aspercream.
For years, I was stuck using traditional foundation. They'd always cake or crease in my fine line. That's why I created Bake, Balance, and Brighten, our award-winning foundation for mature skins. You'll love how it feels and how you'll look. Learn more at laurageller.com.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's high absorption magnesium glycinate helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Hey everybody, W. Kamau Bell here. They say that America is the land of the free, but right now, people in the U.S. are seeing their freedoms taken away at an alarming rate. Freedoms some of us take for granted. The right to vote, equal access to health care, book banning and other forms of censorship that threaten our right to learn. And here's something truly shocking. Right now in our country, hundreds of thousands of people are incarcerated simply because they couldn't afford bail. That's not free, and it's not fair. But there is hope for change. It lives in people like you and in a great organization called the American Civil Liberties Union. So please join me and other concerned Americans in defending our civil liberties by joining the ACLU as a guardian of liberty today. All it takes is just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day.
When you're surrounded by oppressive laws, you can't just sit back and be oppressed. You get up and fight. And all of us at the ACLU are fighting for you.
Whether it's criminal justice reform or protecting LGBTQ+ rights, abortion rights, or voting rights, the ACLU is in the courts, fighting for your rights and mine. And I, for one, sleep better at night knowing they're working every day in all 50 states to protect our freedoms. But these freedoms are at risk. We have to fight for them tirelessly, and with your help, we will continue to do so. So please go to myaclu.org and join the fight for just $19 a month. Use your credit card and get this special We the People t-shirt, ACLU magazine, and more to show you're helping ensure justice for all.
As an individual, donating to the ACLU is one of the most powerful things you can do to fight for justice.
But the ACLU can't do it alone. They need your support now to continue defending our democracy and the freedoms we hold dear. So please join us. Call or go online to myaclu.org today. Thank you.
When dry eyes need a boost,
Blink. Ready, set, blink.
up to 10 hours of relief to help you keep going. Relief with every blink.
The U.S. military deployed on the streets of America. Whole communities targeted for removal. And when accountability finally came knocking, the burn order to cover it all up.
Rachel Maddow presents Burn Order. All episodes available now. Stay up to date on the biggest issues of the day with the MS Now daily newsletter. Get the best of MS Now all in one place. Sign up at ms.now.
All right, joining me now is my colleague and friend, Jacob Soboroff, MS Now senior political and national reporter who's been covering immigration in the United States for years. And by the way, I really want to talk to him about something else. That was the plan. He's the author of a new book called Firestorm, The Great Los Angeles Fires and America's New Age of Disaster, which I'm going to discuss with him. But as is always the case, Jacob, if one plans for you to be on the show, there is going to be an immigration matter to discuss with you. I know you've been following this all very closely since Wednesday in Minneapolis. What's your take?
Ali, first of all, thanks to you and your whole team for having me on. The way that I look at what's happening in Minnesota is that it's part of a much larger puzzle here. And the consequences that we have seen, the killing of Renee Nicole Good, is what happens. It's what Tom Homan told me would happen when Donald Trump instituted the largest mass deportation program in American history. 2 days after the raids in LA started, Tom Homan said to me that he believed someone would die on the streets of the United States, given the level, the tone, and the tenor of these operations and people's opposition to them. And it hasn't just been one person, as you pointed out earlier in your broadcast. We have seen people die in Oxnard, California. We saw a migrant worker run across the 210 freeway in Los Angeles trying to escape from the Border Patrol. In Chicago, we have seen people killed. And when Donald Trump instituted this program, it was modeled after that 1954 Dwight D. Eisenhower program that deported 1 million Mexicans and some Americans. Now we are seeing in Donald Trump's mass deportation program the deaths of immigrants and the death of an American citizen.
Jacob, I will stay close to you on this story, obviously, but I do want to shift because this book is really important and it's about one of the most important things that's happened in America. The book is called Firestorm. It's the Great Los Angeles Fires and America's New Age of Disaster. And in it, you tell a story about a young man whom you encountered during your reporting. You wrote in part, quote, "As we drove through the neighborhood on the beach side of Sunset, just south of my old synagogue, we came upon a young man who told us that his name was James. He had ridden his bicycle wearing safety goggles like you'd find in a high school science lab and an industrial-grade respirator with 2 pink canisters attached as he attempted to put out spot fires at what I assumed was his house when homes just down the block were engulfed. Can you please text my mom and dad to let them know I'm okay and our house is still standing?" he screamed to me as the wind whipped his brown hair. "Their names are Bob and Mimi Khan. I took their number, and I did. Bob and Mimi, this is Jacob Soboroff from NBC News. James wants you to know the house is okay and he's safe. He just doesn't have cell service. Thank you so much," his father texted back. "Oh my, thank you," Mimi wrote. "All of our neighbors are asking about their homes. What does Wildemar and Junaluska look like near our house?" I didn't have time to text them back or to tell them that I was worried about James's safety as he was using a small handheld shovel to pick up and stomp out embers on the ground around the property. this is just a testament to your storytelling, because your storytelling is all about people and how they see this. But this is just one of the many people who were literally there. This isn't like after a hurricane or a tornado where you're trying to make sense of what happened. These are people who are trying to save their homes in real time.
In real time, Allie, and I'm so glad that you brought up the story of James and his parents, Bob and Mimi, because this is a book about people. It's also a book about politics, and there, you know, we've been talking about immigration policy. You could see the impact of immigration policy on the fire recovery in this book, but really it's a book about people at the heart of this, and it might read like a sci-fi thriller at times, but what it really is what you just read, a minute-by-minute account of what it was like to be in the middle of what I thought was, as I watched my childhood neighborhood burn, my past carbonizing, but really it's the fire of the future. And this is a true as true can be story about the lived experience, not just of Angelenos, but as you have seen, perhaps more than anyone at our network with your coverage both in the field and in the studio, what it is like to experience this new age of disaster in America. When one happens, you have been there. This one happened to occur in the neighborhood that I was born and raised in, but it is coming for all of us soon. And I think that this book really makes that clear.
And during this time, and I remember texting with you during it, but this was, people were telling us what happened, like you were, and seeing their history or their present being affected. You were reporting live on air throughout the entire thing while you were watching what was going on in your neighborhood. Let's listen to a little of your reporting.
This is a neighborhood I know very well. I was born and raised in Pacific Palisades, California. It is unimaginable to see it in this state. This is a beautiful community of 23 or 24,000 people in a coastal community along the Pacific Ocean where the Santa Monica Mountains meet the sea. I have been evacuated from my home. I grew up in a house up at the top of a hill that you can't see because of the smoke right now in this neighborhood.
Jacob, there's a fine line as journalists about where the story is about you, where it's not. But this is that remarkable intersection where you and Katy Tur could tell the story differently because you could relate to it a different way. But tell me a little bit, take me behind the curtain about how difficult that was to balance your responsibility as a journalist and to bring, as far as you can, objective news to the audience and the personal, which was very relevant to the telling of the story.
You know, by the way, Allie, just watching that video back, that's around the corner from Bob and Mimi and James Kahn's house. And I should tell everybody that they're okay and the house survived. Good. And when you got, no spoilers, but at the end of the book, in the epilogue, I let everybody know that I touched base with them as I was writing the book, and they're doing okay. As far as, you know, being a journalist and getting into the personal, I think you model this for us better than anybody that I know. We're journalists, but we're also human beings. And this idea that we need to be neutral or somehow removed from our own emotions as people, I think, is a fallacy as a reporter, whether it was covering family separations or being there in the middle of the fires with Katy, my dear, dear friend who also grew up in the Palisades. What you know, our viewers know, when they're going to hear from me is that I am going to give it to them straight, and I'm going to tell you what I think and what I feel, and I will always be fair. I will always be honest. I will always tell you the facts on the ground, but I'm not going to pretend like I don't have emotions. And this was the most difficult assignment that I had ever experienced, to try to communicate to our viewers what was happening in the costliest wildfire event in American history while watching my own neighborhood burn to the ground. And that's why I wrote Firestorm, to explore what it meant for me. I needed it, but also what it means for our planet, how it could have happened, and whether or not it's going to happen again. And I think that you will see when you read this book that it is very clear that it's going to.
And unlike all of the things that I've covered in the past, the element of disinformation here is remarkable. Like, it used to be, nobody ever doubted when I was covering a hurricane or a tornado or a shooting that it actually happened, or it would happen for the reasons it happened. Now there's a whole layer of nonsense that surrounds these things that you have to wade through as a reporter to try and get to the truth.
I will never forget standing outside, ironically, after Katy Miller, Stephen Miller's wife, texted me to ask me to go check on Stephen Miller's parents' house in the Palisades, seeing the Truth Social messages from Donald Trump and the live streams from Elon Musk that were spreading, you know, literally pouring rhetorical fuel on the very real flames of the fire, confusing people about why the fire was happening, whether there was some mystical tap that could be opened in the Pacific Northwest to pour non-existent water on the flames in Los Angeles. There are very real questions about accountability and how this happened, and about infrastructure, and about changes in the way we live, and about climate change that require further investigative reporting and accountability from all politicians, Democrat and Republican, Bass, Newsom, and Trump. But the misinformation and disinformation that is part of this new age of disaster that I write about is unavoidable at this point, and it is making these disasters worse for everybody involved. And I think unless we reckon with that, and until we reckon with that, they will only get worse.
Jacob, thank you for this remarkable account. Thank you for your work on immigration. You are a very important person to us. MS Now's Jacob Soboroff, a great friend of our show. He's got a very important new book out. It's called Firestorm, The Great Los Angeles Fires and America's New Age of Disaster. It's available now. Coming up, we're monitoring events in Minneapolis where Minnesota lawmakers attempted to gain entrance to an ICE facility, but were not allowed to conduct an oversight visit. This is all happening in the fallout of the shooting death of Renee Good by an ICE officer during a sweep of federal agents into the city, and as protests continue in Minneapolis and across the country. We're following all of that with our reporters on the ground. Plus, after a quick break, I'll be joined by a former NYPD.
Benefits they've earned. Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
Oh my God, I won. Guys, I just saw someone win an iPad for under $10.
I got this amazing Japanese knife set for just 75 cents.
It's just a check. You see, I'm fine.
You know, that's what you do. Where you don't, even if these were as serious drug lords as we've said, you don't go and blow them away without due process. That is a law enforcement problem, not a national war with, as happened in
well, it is if you don't get enough new subscribers to Truth Social as a direct result of it. It's like, go to Truth Social for all my posts on today's war, right? And who we're going after next. But I want to switch to a different topic for a second, because maybe we'll have a little disagreement in this one, right? Because, I want to talk about, for example, coming out of this administration, punishment, as policy, which is something that we're watching this administration and the president actually do with, for example, Minnesota, federal funds, Carolina. You see, back home here, this administration literally just froze all federal child care funding to Minnesota. And they did it because they're citing fraud, waste, and abuse schemes. Literally, that started with, as we were just talking, a viral video, a social media viral video. Now, officials say that they will release money, but only if states are somehow capable of proving that the federal funds were spent legitimately, a requirement.
I was skeptical, so I did some research and called Coventry Direct. They explained life insurance is a valuable asset that can be sold.
We learned we could sell all of our policy or keep part of it with no future payments. Who knew? We sold our policy. Now we can relax and enjoy our retirement as we had planned.
If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may qualify to sell your policy. Don't cancel or let your policy lapse without finding out what it's worth. Visit CoventryDirect.com to find out if your policy qualifies, or call 1-800-513-7100. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
72 hours ago, America arrived at a turning point, and we are going to have a lot of discussion as to why that is and how we got here. But much of it has to do with how the Trump administration has responded to the tragic, deadly shooting of 37-year-old Renee Good by an ICE officer. But before we get there, let's examine the incident itself and how it unfolded. I want to take a look at the increasing number of videos and angles from the moments surrounding the shooting. And I'm joined now by Darren Porcher. He's a former NYPD lieutenant. He's going to help us work through these videos. Darren, thank you for being with us to help us with this. I want to start with the video with which most of us are familiar. It was taken by a bystander and gives us probably the clearest look at what happened. In this video, Renee Good is at the wheel of this maroon Honda Pilot. Take note of this ICE officer who is walking around the back of the vehicle holding his cell phone in his right hand. This is Officer Jonathan Ross. We now know that he's recording video on a cell phone, again, in his right hand. The person with whom he's interacting appears to be Renee Good's wife. A pickup truck then pulls up. Two more officers get out and walk toward Renee Good's vehicle. In fact, one of the officers tries to open the door as Renee Good slowly reverses the vehicle, and he reaches inside the SUV. Now, that's him with his hand on the car door, but look beyond this. You see the original officer, Jonathan Ross. He's the one we first saw behind Renee Good's vehicle. He's now crossed in front of the Honda Pilot, and this is where things really escalate. The next video is going to play out very fast. Renee Good's vehicle starts to drive forward, appearing to turn toward the right, not toward Officer Ross. Officer Ross, near the front of the vehicle, pulls out his gun and shoots 3 times, including as the vehicle appears to pass in front of him. The SUV keeps rolling until it crashes into a parked car. Officer Ross, who fired the shots, is walking around freely. All right, this is the part. That's the first video that most people saw. There have since been several videos, Darren, that show largely the same thing. Sometimes you're waiting for the video that shows you something entirely different than what you thought you saw the first time. We didn't get that.
Correct. As we unpack this, we have a multitude of different flaws as it relates to training. From the first perspective, when the officer, the ICE agent, tried to open the vehicle door, that is something that we go against as it relates to best practices in policing. The best case scenario is to order the driver out of the vehicle because it makes it safer for you as a police officer because you don't know what's in that vehicle. So in addition to that, now we had an ICE agent that put himself in harm's way by standing directly in front of the pathway of the vehicle. Police departments prohibit officers from discharging their weapon at a moving vehicle unless that moving vehicle is introducing deadly physical force in addition other than just the vehicle. The reason being is this: if you're successful in shooting the operator of that motor vehicle, the centrifugal force of that vehicle is going to continue to move forward. In addition to that, after the officer or the ICE agent fires the first shot, he then moves to the side and fires 2 additional shots. When he fires the 2 additional shots, the threat has passed. So you don't have a sense of urgency or immediacy. So it begs the question as to why did he fire those additional shots? This is something that he's going to have to answer to. Yep. And we have the Supreme Court law titled Graham versus Connor that was introduced in 1989, which supports when and how police officers can use force. This seems to be somewhat of a travesty, and there's a lot of answers that ICE is going to have to introduce to court as it relates to this officer's actions.
So one of the things that happens in a lot of these ICE immigration stops is they use a video to identify who the person is, who they're moving up to, and to get the license plate off the back of the car. I want to take a look at something something else that we know about this. This is a new video that the Trump administration is trying to draw your attention to. Yesterday, it came out. It's a video that was taken on the phone held by the ICE officer, Jonathan Ross, who fired the shots. And it was first obtained yesterday afternoon by a conservative website. Hours later, MS Now got its own copy from the Department of Homeland Security, which oddly is about 10 seconds longer than the original leaked version. I'm sorry, 10 seconds shorter. The DHS released a version of this that was shorter than the one that was originally leaked. It starts about 10 seconds later. That's interesting. The Trump administration, specifically Vice President J.D. Vance, is using the new video to say that Renee Good was in the wrong. But I'll let you decide for yourself. I want to play the longer version for you now. I will caution you. It's already been pretty disturbing what you've seen. This one's more disturbing, and it contains profanities, and it ends with the sound of 3 gunshots.
Change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former fucking president. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the car. Whoa! Fucking bitch.
Okay, it's not clear who uttered those profanities at the end, but a few things I want to point out from this video. Officer Jonathan Ross, as we mentioned earlier, is filming from a cell phone while this is all happening. We see Ross cross in front of the vehicle while recording. Renee Good addresses Ross's cell phone camera directly from the front seat, smiling. She says, quote, "I'm not mad at you." Ross then circles to the back of the car where he does record Good's license plate. He encounters a woman who's believed to be Renee Good's wife, and after that exchange, the woman attempts to get into the passenger side of the car. Then you hear another officer, as Renee Good's wife is trying to get in, you hear another officer ordering Renee Good to get out of the car. And at this point, Officer Ross is near the front of the vehicle. He's now crossed entirely around the vehicle, still recording on his cell phone. Renee Good appears to turn the wheel all the way to the right, away from Officer Ross and where he's recording from his iPhone. She then starts to pull forward. The phone camera jerks around as 3 shots are fired. There were exactly 7 seconds between when Renee Good is ordered to get out of the car and when the shots are fired. So this addresses a few things you're talking about, that in many cases the goal is to get that license plate. He got it. He was around the back of the car, which is better policing practice, going to that back of the car. He already had that. Then he circled the car entirely. She then, Renee Good's wife, gets into the car. She turns, and you see her turning the wheel in the opposite direction to where the ICE officer is.
You know what's interesting about this? We have an officer that's using a cell phone to capture video of the encounter. A lot of police departments use body cams. So for the life of me, I could not understand why ICE was not equipped with body cams, because it provides that lens into what's happening, and it actually works for the ICE agent to prove or disprove a theory if this is introduced in court. But in addition to that, when we look at the temperament of the lady, the deceased, she doesn't appear as an inflammatory perspective in terms of, look, she's looking to hurt the ICE agents. I don't hear threatening behavior. So it was clear to me, in addition to that, we don't have a crime that was committed. So it boggles my mind as to how this incident escalated to the level that it did. Merely let the person go away. You've got the license plate number. You've got them on video. You can find them if you need to. Right. And what I hear from the administration is that this was a professional agitator. Her job was to agitate the ICE agents. But that's not what I see in the video. But let's say hypothetically, if that's who she was. Police are the avid professionals. You are trained to deal with agitators accordingly, not take their life in a situation such as what we saw in this video. So it really baffles my mind as to how this escalated from 0 to 100 when simply this officer could have just stepped to the left, let that vehicle move off. Because as you mentioned, Ali, we saw the wheels turn going in the direction opposite
to be clear, we
that
saw
officer.
that on the officer's phone. In other words, he was recording that. That's
Absolutely.
not other people's video. We wouldn't even have that video if not for the fact that the officer was actually recording the interaction. So he sees her turning her wheel in a direction opposite to where he's standing. So he's now cleared the front of the car. She turns her wheel that way, and we see the video of her driving off that way.
The officer had the perfect opportunity to just step away. Back in the 1970s, police departments on a national level conducted a study as it relates to either shooting at a vehicle or moving to the side. there's an overwhelming success that was captured by that study that determined that the best case scenario is, or the best practice is to step away from the vehicle as opposed to stand in front of it. This was a tragedy that could have been avoided. However, this is where we are right now, and this officer has an answer to this. And a problem that I have with the administration is they've drawn conclusions far too soon, whereas these shooting investigations take a long time. They dismantled this crime scene relatively quick. And from being a former lieutenant in the NYPD's Internal Affairs Bureau, I've investigated many of these police-involved shootings. It's an arduous task. You want to see what the trajectory of those bullets would have been going through that window. It takes a long time. In addition to that, mapping. What was the distance between the officer and the vehicle? That did not occur because the crime scene was dismantled so quick. And it also begs the question of, how do we have complete transparency when we have the feds not working in tandem with state authorities in conducting these investigations? State police, when I say state police, meaning local and state officers, are involved in far more police shooting investigations than the feds. Therefore, it works best to have the two entities working symbiotically to ensure that we have the results that are proper and we can move forward and ultimately uphold that trust between the police and community. This fractures that police and community relationship because we have the monolithic perspective of the feds and not the conjoined
investigating one of their own.
Exactly.
And to be clear, the federal government has said that the state will not have a role in this investigation. So that's
which I've never seen. Yeah. I've never seen this before.
Yeah, it's very unusual. Darren, thank you for being here. I hate the fact that every time you and I are talking about this, we're talking about somebody who's been killed. But thank you for helping us analyze the video. Darren Porcher is a former lieutenant with the NYPD. He's an adjunct professor of criminal justice and security at Pace University. Quote, "The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command," end quote. That is one of the most famous quotes in all of literature. Two short sentences that sum up the totalitarian dystopia at the center of George Orwell's classic novel 1984. The book was written in 1948, 84 being the juxtaposition of 48. But Orwell began thinking about it while World War II, a fight against authoritarians, was still being fought. Orwell's warning about cult-like figures was alarmingly resonant this week following the killing of Renee Nicole Good by an ICE officer in Minneapolis on Wednesday, and the Trump administration's swift and brazen campaign to justify that killing. In fact, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz recited that very quote during a press conference on Thursday as the American public was subjected to a parade of lies and misdirection about an incident that was caught on video from multiple angles. Trump himself weighed in on Truth Social just 5 hours after the shooting occurred. Not with anything conciliatory. He said Renee Good, quote, "violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer," end quote. Of the ICE officer, Trump proclaimed that he shot in self-defense and added, quote, "It's hard to believe he's alive, but is now recovering in the hospital," end quote. As we just showed you in our video analysis, that does not appear to be the case. Hours after that, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was deployed to flesh out the administration's version of events. She said that Renee Good had, quote, "weaponized her vehicle," end quote, committing, quote, "an act of domestic terrorism," and that the deadly shots fired by the ICE agent were deemed, quote, "defensive shots." Again, in the video analysis we just showed you, that does not appear to be the case. Vice President J.D. Vance also called Renee Good, quote, "a deranged leftist," and proclaimed her death, quote, "a tragedy of her own making." A tragedy of her own making. All of this as we were watching the video of Renee Good's killing proliferate online. As our video analysis demonstrates, we can all plainly see what happened, yet we are being told not to believe it, as Orwell warned we would be, to reject the evidence of our eyes and ears. This is not an accident. It is deliberate, it is coordinated, and it is dangerous. Being told to accept brazen and obvious lies about the shooting of an American citizen by a masked federal agent in broad daylight that was witnessed and recorded for the world to see. The big lie, the original one we were all warned about, set the table for what is happening this week. When Donald Trump lost the 2020 election and refused to admit it, when he lied about it repeatedly and persistently, and in the face of overwhelming and obvious evidence to the contrary, he was laying the foundation upon which his power now rests. When he called his supporters to the Capitol, they rioted and assaulted police officers and hunted members of Congress and erected a gallows on the lawn. It was all on video. In fact, it was all seen live by a shocked and horrified country. And for a time, the violence of that day was nearly universally condemned. And yet the lies continued. Over the course of the days and weeks and the years that followed that insurrection, Donald Trump worked brazenly and openly to entrench that lie. At his first opportunity, day one of his return to the presidency, he pardoned or commuted the sentences of everyone convicted of crimes committed in the insurrection. And this week, on the 5th anniversary of that day of violence at the Capitol, Donald Trump's government debuted a new official website that fully rewrites the history of January 6th. It includes a new timeline of events of that day, complete with a recharacterization of the mob as, quote, patriotic protesters who were participating in a, quote, peaceful march. It blames the Capitol Police for escalating tensions and links to a report that lays the blame of that day's security failures on, quote, politicized decisions by Democratic leadership, end quote. It calls the 2020 presidential election, quote, the greatest election theft in U.S. history. It was called the Big Lie, a term popularized by the esteemed historian Tim Snyder for a reason. The lie is so brazen that it imparts a special power of its own when left unchecked. A lie this obvious, a lie that is repeated after it is disproven, is autocracy rising. It's a lie that not only disregards evidence to the contrary, but demands that you disregard it too. The perpetrator of the big lie does not care that there is evidence or that you saw the evidence. The perpetrator of the big lie says, no, you didn't, because I say you didn't. And Trump's foundational big lie about the 2020 election and the insurrection that followed, and the relative success of that big lie, is why Trump and his administration are lying to us this week with impunity about the shooting death of Renee Good, while he continues to send federal forces into American cities, making clear that no one who gets in their way is safe. In a Substack post, the historian Heather Cox Richardson explains that these lies have a purpose. Quote, that both DHS and Trump posted false accounts of the shooting, even as there are 4 videos circulating that reveal those accounts to be lies, shows that they no longer are making any attempt to justify their actions. Instead, they are demanding Americans abandon reality in favor of whatever the administration says. If this works, it would be a demonstration of totalitarian power, the ability to control how people think. Accepting that lie is a loyalty test. When we come back from the break, I'll be joined by Heather Cox Richardson, author and professor, to explain why that all-important loyalty test will fail.
Brought Republicans and Democrats together to some extent.
I mean, and this is not just a Trump thing, by the way. I mean, Congress was doing this when Barack Obama was trying to get somebody else to be able to, like, you know, take some of the political heat for him striking Syria, and Congress basically said, sorry, we don't want any part of that.
So this has been longstanding, not with this president, not just with this president. You can see this with Reagan's actions. You can see this going back through the 50s and 60s with the intel community. This is not a new phenomenon.
So I love Pat. I pretty strongly disagree on a lot of fronts. Look, I agree. Congress has been gelding itself for a very long time, and they've been doing it under Democrats and Republicans. They've given up trade authority. They've given up all sorts of authority. They haven't formally declared war since World War II. They even sort of declared war since the AUMF. But you've had Mike Johnson just cravenly hand off all the trade authorities to the President of the United States with this tariff stuff, to the point where he's sneaking in rules to keep Congress from even being able to review the things Trump is doing under things like IEPA. It is an incredibly
This is why we have Jonah.
Gracious, it is an incredibly subservient role that they have. And I don't think it's because Mike Johnson is a quisling or anything like that. I think it's because the primary system is such that Trump can destroy all these people in their primaries, and they're all terrified to take them on, except on those rare issues like Jeffrey Epstein's thing, where the primary voters are more on their side of this. And the last point I'll say, Look, I agree with you about what Stephen Miller thinks he's doing, and I agree with you about what J.D. Vance thinks there's messaging, and Marco Rubio about the strongman stuff. But I think everybody who talks about how Trump has embraced the Monroe Doctrine have gotten the causality entirely backwards. Trump likes the Monroe Doctrine not because he agrees with it, but because he thinks it agrees with him. He likes any of these powers and these arguments and these pretextual rationales, going back to the Alien Enemies Act, that militate towards him having unconstrained, unrestrained, unilateral power.
Right.
And those are the arguments he makes, those are the arguments he likes, and if the law isn't with him, he comes up with new ones, because that's the only thing he really cares about. He doesn't care about messaging to Putin about being a strongman. He just wants to seem like a strongman.
Yeah, it's a statement of ego. I mean, it is an expression of ego when he's asked, what are my limits on the world stage? He doesn't, it's very telling, not that, he's been in our public life now for a decade, so it's not surprising, but it's very telling that, he doesn't use that as an opportunity to talk about what his foreign policy is going to do for the average American, or talk about his view of America's role in the world order. He gives purely a statement of ego. That is the lens through which he sees everything. That is the lens through which he makes these kinds of decisions, and that is the vector that I think Democrats have as we start looking toward making midterm arguments. Like, this is not a guy who's making decisions for you.
That's why he's putting his name on everything.
About ego.
And what is Trump's morality?
This is not a guy who's making decisions for you.
That's why he's putting his name on everything.
About ego.
And what is Trump's morality?
Oh, I think it's look, as Nietzsche said, when you look into Trump's soul, the danger is his soul will look back into you. I think he is almost entirely absent of an ethical framework.
Yes.
He is very little interior life other than id and ego.
Is somebody who has shown us that the limits to his morality are endless. So in some ways, when I first saw this statement, I thought, like, well, hell, I mean, this means, like, take your pick of things that Donald Trump's going to try to do on the world stage, because if his limit is his morality.
Okay, on that note, coming up in the arena, the announcement nearly 2 decades ago this week that changed quite literally everything. But first, House Republicans break ranks on a critical health care vote as the party scrambles to find a solution to one of voters' top concerns ahead of the midterm elections.
Do you think politically, if you voted against this, this would have been a problem in your race?
Mono, when's the last time you think I took a political vote?
I'm asking you.
I don't care.
This is an incredible story. The stakes were extremely high.
You could hear the gasp.
Columbia, Houston, comm check.
It's very difficult to determine whom you can trust.
747s don't fall out of the sky.
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage.
Something went on that's still with us.
You have seen is people are finally starting to wake up to the idea that the ICE officers that are going after undocumented immigrants and other people in their sweeps are really not designed only to subjugate those people, but also to take control of people. At the end of the day, this is an attempt to put in place an authoritarian government that destroys our democracy. And after this week, between what happened in Venezuela and what happened with the rewriting of January 6th and what is happening in Minnesota and is what is happening across the country, it's very hard for people to say, oh, this isn't really about me or about democracy. It's simply about hurting those people, which is, of course, one of the ways you get the rise of an authoritarian or fascist government in the first place.
So I'm glad you brought up Venezuela, because for those people who are able to analyze and believe and watch these videos, for instance, of the shooting of Renee Good and come to the conclusion that what the government is saying is not true, life will go on. It'll be fine. What's the danger to those of us who don't fall for the nonsense of what it does to democracy that some people do?
I'm afraid you're going to have to untangle that one a little bit. I lost you on where you're going with that.
So I think most of my viewers will watch these videos, these 4 videos, and more will come out and say what J.D. Vance and Kristi Noem and Donald Trump said happened didn't happen.
Right.
Why is it problematic that some percentage of people will still believe that it did happen, or will still believe January 6th from Donald Trump's perspective?
Well, listen, you are never going to get 100% of a population to agree on anything. Even at the end of the rise and fall of an authoritarian government, you often have as many as 25, even to 30% of people still saying, hey, my dude was right. You're never going to get everybody, but the people who need to be convinced that we are going in a bad direction are those people who previously weren't engaged in politics or who were sort of MAGA light, if you will. Traditional Republicans, perhaps, who joined MAGA because they felt that if there was an R behind someone's name, they were a good person to support. We know from polls that Trump has lost all of them, virtually all of them, on every issue. Nothing that he is doing is popular at the same time that you have increasing prices, for example, of healthcare, of housing, of groceries. People are turning against him on that. Overwhelmingly in the polls, by the way, that's the major issue for people. They're turning away from him on that. But again, when you see on our streets video of a 37-year-old mother shot down after saying, hey, dude, I'm not mad at you. People understand that we're in a very different world. And this has happened in our past. You know, I made a big deal the other day about the importance of Uncle Tom's Cabin in 1852, you know, a book that many of us got dragged kicking and screaming through in high school or college. But the point of that book was for Harriet Beecher Stowe to say to other young mothers who had lost their own children through disease that if you permitted the state to tear children away from their mothers, the state could do anything. And I think what we're seeing in the wake of the murder of Ms. Good is the recognition that a group of largely untrained, violent agents, federal agents in our streets being able to shoot somebody in the face for saying, hey, dude, I'm not mad at you, is something that could happen to any of us and could, and then turns around and says to people who have not previously been involved, hey, this is not a question of being concerned about the price of eggs. This is a question of whether you're going to dare to exercise your constitutional rights, for example, to speak up, or all the other constitutional rights that we take for granted. It feels like a real turning point.
Heather, I want to take a quick break. I want to come back and continue this conversation with you, particularly about the characterization of Renee Good, who has been called a domestic terrorist and a radical left lunatic. And yet, what we know about her, we see from video shot by the ICE officer who shot her. A big friendly dog, a woman saying, I'm not mad at you, and yet she got shot. We'll be right back with Heather Pike Richardson. You're watching Bell Sheet.
Have you ever felt so sluggish that it was like you were stuck in your chair? Like you didn't feel energetic enough for even routine activity? I've been there. And as a doctor, I knew this could be a sign that my digestive system wasn't working at its best. So I followed the same advice I give my patients and started taking Metamucil fiber every day.
Metamucil is the only leading brand with plant-based psyllium fiber that gels to help trap and remove waste so you can feel lighter in as little as 14 days.
After trying it for 2 weeks, I decided to keep taking Metamucil every day to help meet my health goals.
Metamucil psyllium fiber also helps curb cravings between meals, helps lower cholesterol to support heart health, and helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels. That's why Metamucil is the #1 fiber brand recommended by doctors, pharmacists,
and gastroenterologists like me.
Metamucil. Digestive health starts here. Scan to shop or visit these fine retailers today.
I'm being told this is Limo Emo from Liberty Mutual, who helps save you hundreds by customizing your car insurance.
And his partner, Doug, is the gentleman under the security guard.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
To improve our efficiency, Lumber Liquidators is moving its national distribution center. Over 1,000 truckloads of huge discount. Available at Lumber Liquidator stores nationwide. See your local Lumber Liquidator store or lumberliquidators.com. Tell them Tom said to give you a deal.
Do more of what you love with Boost Oxygen. Whether you're exploring the outdoors on a hike, playing sports and need quicker recovery to stay in the game, keeping up with kids or grandkids, or simply taking time to relax and unwind, Pure Supplemental Oxygen is there when you need it. Breathe better with Boost Oxygen.
After my accident, I couldn't quite do things like I used to. You know, my daughter introduced Boost to me. I love the support, and when I got into martial arts, we got in it together. A real fight deserves a real boost.
What's the secret to peak health?
Going micro with Noom.
Micro habits, micro wins, even microdose GLP-1s.
I can lose up to 11 pounds in 30 days? Heck yeah!
Now starting at just $99.
Do you have a life insurance policy you no longer need? Now you can sell your policy, even a term policy, for an immediate cash payment. Call Coventry Direct to learn more.
We thought we had planned carefully for our retirement.
But we quickly realized we needed a way to supplement our income.
Our friends sold their policy to help pay their medical bills. And that got me thinking. Maybe selling our policy could help with our retirement.
I was skeptical. So I did some research and called Coventry Direct. They explained life insurance is a valuable asset that can be sold.
We learned we could sell all of our policy or keep part of it with no future payments. Who knew? We sold our policy. Now we can relax and enjoy our retirement as we had planned.
If you have $100,000 or more of life insurance, you may qualify to sell your policy. Don't cancel or let your policy lapse without finding out what it's worth. Visit CoventryDirect.com to find out if your policy qualifies or call 1-800-513-7100. Coventry Direct, redefining insurance.
When COPD tried to stop you, you kept going. Breztri, a 3-in-1 inhaler. Better breathing starting within 5 minutes and helps prevent flare-ups. Breztri won't replace a rescue inhaler for sudden breathing problems. It is not for asthma. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition or high blood pressure before taking it. Don't take Breztri more than prescribed. Breztri may increase risk of thrush, pneumonia, and osteoporosis. Call your doctor if worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain occur. Ask your doctor about Breztri.
I'm back with historian Heather Cox Richardson. Heather, you brought up this point about who Renee Good was and how we came to learn that. I want to show our viewers again video shot on the phone of the officer who shot her moments before the shooting. Let's just go through this together. This is, we see a picture of a big dog in the back. We see her saying, "It's fine, I'm not mad at you." We see an interaction after that with Renee Good's wife. This is the same person that was described as a domestic terrorist, far-left lunatic, and someone who was attempting to kill an ICE officer. What do you do when all the evidence says something that's not the case?
You know, I want to make a point about something in that video. So it's really, this is classic authoritarian behavior. We've seen it all over the world when somebody stands up to the regime, simply hurting them in some fashion, incarcerating them, executing them, hurting them in some fashion, and saying that person was an enemy of the state, often by arguing that that person was someone on the far left. And you heard that all the time, you know, from the Nazis on forward. That's pretty clearly a pattern. But you cut off a line there that really jumped out to me. She said, "I'm not mad at you." Mm-hmm. And the reason that I want to call that out is because that is sort of classic de-escalation behavior. She, you know, that is, you know, that's one of the first things you say is, "I acknowledge your feelings. I am not mad at you." Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is an important American component to this in this moment, because what she did when she said that was she indicated that she was actually the person in control of the situation. She was actually the dominant figure saying, "Hey, it's okay. I'm not mad at you. You know, let's de-escalate this situation." And his response to that, what the administration is now trying to argue is was fear on his part, or the idea that she was somehow a threat. His response to her de-escalation, which indicated that she was the one in control of that situation, was to pull out a gun and prove that no, in fact, he was in charge of that situation. And that response in this moment in the United States is a reaction of power, obviously, but I think it is so past time for us to acknowledge the degree to which this administration is operating misogyny in order to put control of this entire country on the table. And boy, did that just encapsulate it. Her trying to de-escalate him seeing that as a woman taking control of a situation that he wanted to control, and so he killed her.
Imagine her last words were, "I'm not mad at you." And then she got shot to death. Heather, thank you for being on the show. Heather Cox Richardson is a professor of history at Boston College and author of Letters from an American on Substack. All right, coming up, today's meeting of the Velshi Band Book Club is moments away. We're taking a look at Kurt Vonnegut's magnum opus, Slaughterhouse-5, with his daughter, Nanette Vonnegut. She's part of a lawsuit against officials in Utah, which claims to defend the freedom to read. We'll be right back.
Sometimes you just need a moment. Self-care has never been this easy. Try Zero Sugar Gummies from Nature Made. Same benefits, zero sugar.
If you believe that your body is your own and that reproductive health care is health care, then donate to Planned Parenthood and put your values into action. Efforts to shut us down have already put 200 health centers at risk of closing. Go online, call, or scan this code to donate $19 a month right now, and we'll send you this care no matter what t-shirt. This is the time to show up for your values before it's too late. Go online, call, or scan this code.
My cell phone bill kept going up. I started looking around, what are our other options? With Consumer Cellular, I'm saving over $50 a month. Same coverage, same data, same talk, same cell phone, simple.
So why am I paying way more for a big wireless plan? What am I getting for my money?
Consumer Cellular gives you the same fast, reliable nationwide network for up to half the cost of big wireless.
Same tower, same coverage.
I feel like people should know that.
They cut my bill just about in half.
I'm saving almost $100 a month.
That's over $1,000 a year.
Not only did I save money, but our coverage was vastly improved. It was fantastic.
There's got to be a catch, and I'm going to find it by going straight to the CEO himself, Ed Evans. What's up, Ed?
Because we serve primarily the 50-plus market today, we know our customers are going to use a lot less data. We can then set our pricing substantially lower than what the big three are able to do on the exact same networks.
Oh, I love that.
My job is to help you save money on wireless, even if you're on an unlimited plan.
My bill with the big carriers was over $300, and with Consumer Cellular, it's about $100.
Our customers ranked us #1 in network coverage satisfaction. And there's no long-term contracts.
When I look at what I had with Verizon, I'm not sure what I was paying extra for.
And yes, you could keep your number, no problem. Want to bring your phone? That's great too. We'll have you wrapped up in about 20 minutes. Really.
We hadn't gone back. We're not going back. We're with Consumer Cellular.
Call now and see how one of our U.S.-based Switch Pros can cut your bill by up to half. That's right, up to half. And when you call right now, you'll get your second month free. Just use the code SECONDFREE. And AARP members save even more. Call 1-800-859-0337. That's 1-800-859-0337.
I brought in Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein. Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Ensure Max Protein. 30 grams protein, 1 gram sugar, and a protein blend to feed muscles up to 7 hours.
Get ready for the elegant.
We wanted to do something big and special.
The extravagant.
I knew that I wanted to wear Dior tonight.
And the electric.
I had like chills.
You can't spell red carpet without E.
It's magic.
Live from E! Golden Globes. Sunday at 6 on E!
The U.S. military deployed on the streets of America. Whole communities targeted for removal. And when accountability finally came knocking, the burn order to cover it all up.
Rachel Maddow presents Burn Order. All episodes available now.
Equal parts semi-autobiography, anti-war commentary, science fiction exploration, and satire, Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-5 centers on the infamous and brutal bombing of Dresden during World War II. Just as Vonnegut did as a young prisoner of war himself, our fictional protagonist, Billy Pilgrim, manages to survive Dresden by accident or by fate. The slaughterhouse that Pilgrim is held in is just far enough underground to serve as protection from the bombs. What happens next is time travel, alien abduction, an examination of the horrors of war, and of the realities of free will. Slaughterhouse-Five, Kurt Vonnegut's magnum opus, is a novel wholly central to decades of America's countercultural identity, and it is today's Velshi Band Book Club feature. Slaughterhouse-Five explores many things: the cost of war, morality, the passing of time, free will, and death, and perhaps most centrally, how its children and innocents fight in guilty men's wars. Quote, "The dog who had sounded so ferocious in the winter distances was a female German shepherd. She was shivering. Her tail was between her legs. She had been borrowed that morning from a farmer. She had never been to war before. She had no idea what game was being played." End quote. There's a fatalistic refrain, a mantra used throughout the novel. So it goes. Those three words are mentioned after every death in the novel. Textually, so it goes is part of the philosophy of time and death held by the alien race that punctuates the narrative of the novel. Subtextually, so it goes examines both the inevitability of death and the desensitization to horror that comes with war. So it goes is one of those easy turns of phrase that have become so embedded in the English lexicon that you almost forget that those words came from somewhere, that they mean something greater. Slaughterhouse-Five, like Vonnegut's entire literary canon, is funny, sardonic. Vonnegut's use of humor is very intentional and specific. The author, Salman Rushdie, explains it better than I ever could in a 2019 New Yorker piece, writing that the novel, quote, "sees war as a tragedy so great that perhaps only the mask of comedy allows one to look it in the eye," end quote. Vonnegut is one of those authors, like Toni Morrison or Stephen King or Margaret Atwood, whose contributions to both literature and American culture are innumerable. You cannot overstate what Slaughterhouse-Five has done for American identity and what Vonnegut's writing style has done for every author that has come after him. If you haven't read Slaughterhouse-Five, you're holding yourself back. Take it from me. So, generally, this is the part of our meeting where I explain the nature of the censorship efforts leveled against the book that we're featuring, perhaps part of a sweeping removal of hundreds of titles or a singular point of contention tearing a school board apart. While Vonnegut's work has been widely censored, today it is at the center of a push to maintain the freedom to read. As members of the Velshi Band Book Club know, Utah has a legal mechanism in place to remove books from public schools and libraries across the state. In accordance with Utah's sensitive materials law, which was passed in 2024 and then amended in it was passed in 2022 and amended in 2024, a statewide ban is triggered if at least 3 school districts determine that a book in question has so-called objective sensitive material. Books can also be removed district by district. In 2023, for example, Slaughterhouse-Five was removed from Utah's Washington County School District for so-called pornographic content. The lawsuit alleges that under the law, quote, "literary merit, educational value, and age appropriateness for different student populations are all irrelevant once a single passage triggers the automatic removal process," end quote. As of this week, there are 22 books banned statewide in Utah. 2 of the 3 new editions are past Velshi Band Book Club features, 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult and The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. The third is Wicked by Gregory Maguire. And as of this week, a group of best-selling authors, Utah students, the ACLU, and Kurt Vonnegut's estate, represented by his 4 children, are suing state officials in Utah. They assert that the sensitive materials law is unconstitutional, and they're fighting back. I'm not going to speculate on how exactly Kurt Vonnegut would feel about any of this, but he did leave us more than a few clues. The last work Vonnegut published before his death in 2007 is a book of essays called A Man Without a Country. In it, he writes in part, quote, "The America I loved still exists, if not in the White House or the Supreme Court or the Senate or the House of Representatives or the media. The America I love still exists at the front desks of our public libraries," end quote. Right after the break, I will be joined by Nadette Vonnegut, plaintiff in this major lawsuit defending the freedom to read in Utah. She's Kurt Vonnegut's daughter.
Mary's Bun Shop. Not too boring. No. Ugh. Yikes. There it is.
Naming a business? Hard. Swagging it out? Easy. Move your business forward with Custom Ink.
Crime's exclusive wildcard game is coming.
The Packers, the Bears. We're in for a wild one. Prime's exclusive wild card game. Packers, Bears, only on Prime.
When dry eyes need a boost,
Blink. Ready, set, blink.
up to 10 hours of relief to help you keep going. Relief with every blink.
You know what's all good? Zero heartburn. Woo, it's hot. That's why I take Prilosec OTC. Just one pill a day blocks heartburn before it starts. Prilosec OTC. One pill, zero heartburn. All good.
You're told to optimize, to hack. Every January, a new you. What if you were never meant to start over? Your biology knows how to thrive. It just needs a reminder. Armor Colostrum reawakens that brilliance. 400 nutrients, 4 seconds, 1 daily revival. This year, remember what you're made of.
Even on an antidepressant, I was masking my depression. I felt I was missing out on the moments around me. So my doctor prescribed Rexulti.
When added to an antidepressant, Rexulti was proven to significantly reduce depression symptoms, more than an antidepressant alone.
She said Rexulti could provide a boost. For me, less depression meant enjoying the little things.
Elderly people with dementia-related psychosis have increased risk of death or stroke. Antidepressants may increase suicidal thoughts and actions and worsen depression in children and young adults. Call your healthcare provider right away to report new or sudden changes in mood, behavior, thoughts, or feelings, or if you develop suicidal thoughts or actions. Report fever, stiff muscles, and confusion, which can be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High blood sugar can lead to coma or death. Weight gain, increased cholesterol, unusual urges, dizziness on standing, falls, seizures, trouble swallowing, or sleepiness may occur.
Could a boost help you build on your progress?
Ask your doctor about adding Rexulti.
Over the years, you've talked to her about boys. You've talked to her till you were blue in the face. You've talked about parenting tips, college prep, and who's in the family photos. Now it's time to talk about what living looks like for you. For over 30 years, Right at Home has been providing seniors the tools they need to plan the next chapter of their lives and the care they need to stay where they want to be. Right at Home. Call or visit our website and let's start talking about living.
When I started Laura Geller Beauty over 25 years ago, I realized there weren't enough makeup options for women with mature skin. So I put together an amazing kit of everyday products for women over 40. I call it the Daily Routine.
Flu keeping you out?
I got this. I don't got this.
You need NyQuil Intense Flu.
Knock out your flu symptoms with NyQuil Intense Flu. You do got this. NyQuil Intense Flu. The nighttime sniffling, aching fever. Best sleep with the flu. Medicine.
Really happy to have you here. Happy Monday. This is absolutely a story of national importance. Do you support Democrats' effort to kind of fight fire with fire? What's your take on the state of the opposition to Trump right now? What do you think the goal is here? What do you think the risk is here to the country? Do we know why this is what they want for the country? I mean, imagine if they'd actually run for office on the basis of these things they're doing in office. So when people write about the history of this moment, what will the story be about us?
Today's meeting of the Velshi Band Book Club is officially underway. It's kind of funny because I use this to open the meeting, but in fact, in many cases, these books are about things that are happening in court, including this one today. Today's meeting's a little atypical. As usual, we're examining a book that is incredibly important, America's anti-war classic, Kurt Vonnegut's magnum opus, Slaughterhouse-Five. So what's the abnormal part? Two things. The first is the reason we picked Slaughterhouse-Five for today is because it's embroiled in a censorship lawsuit in the state of Utah. The second is who we have joining us to discuss the novel, Kurt Vonnegut's daughter, Nanette Vonnegut, who joins me right now. Nanette, welcome, first of all.
Oh, thank you for having me. I feel safe here.
Well, good. And by the way, it's not just the proximity of you being Kurt Vonnegut's daughter. It's that this book was 20 years in the writing, and you were around for it.
Yes, yes. And there are many things. We have not enough minutes to talk about, but what I want to present is the father that I knew, the man before he was famous, and that it was a creation, it was a piece of art. And to a Bloomington Lilly Library and see all the different versions I mean, and the beauty of these manuscripts where he cut and hand pasted words, you know, it's just stunning to see. And I saw it later in my life. Actually, I've come to be a huge fan of my father's later in life. I did not want to read Slaughterhouse-Five when it came out because it seemed to have taken him into another realm. And I was.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he just suddenly he had a whole mass of people who adored him, and other, you know, I was a teenager, 15, and there are other people, teenagers, who were saying he's like a father to me. So, you know, there's a bit of possessiveness.
Right, he's actually my father.
Around it. And I thought, I just, you know, he's just my goofy, fabulous father. You know, he's not, you know, what's so great about this, really?
Right.
It was a very private thing about celebrity. So I realized with time and how things shake out, as you get older, you know, you can see your parents very clearly. And so those 15 years, it was a golden time. By the time I was born, he was 5 years into working on Slaughterhouse-Five.
Right.
My sister was 5 years old. No, she was born in 1949. So that's when he started doing the research. And my brother was born in 47. I came 54. So there's a timeline. For the 15 years that from baby on to when he got famous.
He was all in this thing. He was in this project.
He was working. And you know, you take it for granted what your parents do, but looking back, it was very unusual. He was hiding. You can go near the study. My mother was guarding it. She was the guardian of words. She was very, very passionate about writing and literature, and she knew that he had something very important to say, and she was very prophetic. And I want to say that there's a childhood memory that is kind of amazing, that she, out of nowhere, when I was 8 years old, I don't know where I was, but she came at me with, darling, and she was very urgent about it. Your father's going to be famous someday.
Wow.
And people are going to say his books are dirty. But his books are not dirty because people in real life use dirty words. And then she took off. It was like, you know, from outer space. It was very prophetic. And what I did with that as an 8-year-old was to go to school and tell my friends, my father's going to be famous for writing dirty books.
Oh my God.
So this was something I shared at an event this past October. It was called Save Our Stories through the Penguin Random House Publishing House. We were all invited. I just went, having no idea what would happen there. It was only about 100 people. Yeah. It was at the Washington, D.C. Martin Luther King Library. My brother was there too. We didn't plan it that way. But someone from Penguin Random House asked me to write a 2-minute speech about my first experience with censorship.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And it was when you were 8 years old. That's kind of remarkable that you've experienced the whole thing, start to finish. I read a little bit of that quote. I want to read the rest of the quote from your father's essay collection, A Man Without a Country. On the subject of burning books, I want to congratulate librarians, not famous for their physical strength or their powerful political connections or their great wealth, who all over this country have staunchly resisted anti-democratic bullies who have tried to remove certain books from their shelves and have refused to reveal to thought police the names of persons who have checked out those titles. So the America I loved still exists, if not in the White House or the Supreme Court or the Senate or the House of Representatives or the media. The America I love still exists at the front desks of our public libraries. We couldn't share that view more here. These heroes, who we think, by the way, have become heroes in the last few years, as your father wrote, they've been heroes for a long time.
He was so weak in the knees about libraries, librarians, and public school teachers.
Yep.
His values and my mother's values were wonderful values. There was nothing stuffy about him, but, you know, nobody could say it better, you know.
Yes.
It's hard being the child of somebody who speaks so well. I mean, it's humbling.
But it's a great message, right? To my viewers, it's a
beautiful.
great message that there are people on the front lines of this battle,
Yes, yes.
and they are your public school teachers, and they are your librarians.
And I met these people at this event.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepared for it, and there was an urgency from all these people who are dealing with censorship, lawyers, public school teachers who are also plaintiffs in different states, librarians. I mean, I thought, oh, well, this is the land of milk and honey.
Yeah.
These are my parents' people.
Yes.
And it was a beautiful place to be. So it was absolutely a no-brainer to get on board with this lawsuit. And I'm speaking for my siblings also. I also want to defend my father's honor. I mean, it's like, you know, that they could slap pornographic. Yeah. I mean, it enrages me, and I like this weapons grade stupid. You know, and it's so wrong. It's so. I just feel incensed, and so did he. There's another letter he wrote in '73 when his book was banned in North Dakota that he wrote. You should find that.
I will do that.
That he was so personally insulted, and there are things about him I learned in that letter that he never talked about war. He never talked about being, you know, getting a Purple Heart. Yeah. And he said, I am this, I am real. And I'm saying, how dare you diminish this man who's fought for this country? Yeah.
It's a remarkable story, and thank you for your family stories on this as well. Nanette, great to have you.
How nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Nanette Vonnegut is the newest member of the Velshi Band Book Club, the daughter of the author Kurt Vonnegut, plaintiff in the new case defending the freedom to read and access to literature in Utah. And that does it for me. Thank you for watching. Stay where you are. Alex Witt Report starts after a quick break.
David trusts Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
Nice to meet you. My name is David. I've been a pharmacist for 44 years. When I have customers come in, I recommend Prevagen. Number one, because it's effective, does not require a prescription, and I've been taking it quite a while myself, and I love it when the customers come back in and tell me, David, that really works so good for me. Makes my day.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
I am going to do something right now that is going to just go, what? We're going to give you all of our best wrinkle-fighting products in one system.
Ellen DeGeneres has a skincare line, and I just found out about this. I was suffering with dryness, dullness, and that dreaded turkey neck. I've been using this for about a month now. 3 things I'm really noticing. The neck area is starting to smooth, visually firmer, plumper skin. And I notice my skin is staying hydrated all day long. Firm it up with some firming serum. Let's go. I'm already feeling the tightening happening. Tighter. Crazy about the hydration cream. You only need a little, but I want to like slather it all over me. Saving the best for